Good evening. I'm going to call the Select Board meeting to order for Monday, December 16th, 2024. And note that we will be going into executive session and we will not return to public session until 6 p.m. at least. Can I get a motion?
Madam Chair, move to enter into an executive session for the following matters. Item A, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town, 379 Main Street. Item B, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town, 5C Street Extension. And item C, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for all town unions and non-union personnel, and the chair has determined that the open session would have a detrimental effect on the town's bargaining position. Personnel bylaw.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Pete?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Michael? Aye. And I'm an aye, 5-0. Good evening. I'm going to call the Select Board meeting to order, or back to order, excuse me, for Monday, December 16th, 2024. We were in executive session earlier this evening, and we did take action on partial action on item A, action on item B, which we will discuss later under contracts, and no action currently under item C. And also, just to remind everybody, as required by open meeting law, you're hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chair prior to the start of the meeting. Hearing nobody, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before you go anywhere. Before you start. This is Jack P.
Yeah.
Just have
I'm gonna turn it over to you then, Don.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Before we actually start the agenda items, I'd like to acknowledge the passing of an icon in Harwich, Jack Pena. Just a terrific man, a wonderful, warm personality, and a great musician, I might add. Caught his act in Country Inn a number of times with various musicians, and Mr. Talismanic is back there, and he might be able to shed some light on some of this. But I mean, Jack was just a big bear of a guy and a really friendly guy, and the town is poor for his passing.
Thank you, Don. And now on to public comments and announcements. Next. Go
Madam
ahead.
Chair, this is what you have on your agenda there. The next Select Board meeting will be Monday, December 30th, 2024, and the town will be observing the following holiday schedule for all town offices. Next Tuesday, December 24th, town offices will be closing at 12 p.m. All town offices will be closed in observance of Christmas on December 25th. On Tuesday, December 31st, we will be closing at 12 noon, and again closed Wednesday, January 1st, in observance of the New Year's holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And then weekly briefing.
Sure. Under weekly briefings, as I've been mentioning, so today was the soft launch of the Phase 3 contract, specifically 2 West. Tomorrow, they will really, I think, start getting into the ground, but this is on Chestnut Lane. So again, Phase 3 is the sewer extension for East Harwich. And the look ahead beyond this week, again, this work is expected to go from December 16th through December 27th. The work, however, will match the same schedules at the town, meaning there will be half-day of work on December 24th, no work on December 25th, and half-day of work with cleanups on December 31st. So right now, it is still focused on Chestnut Lane. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Now on to the consent agenda. You have to go, and we haven't done public comment yet, so,
Okay, that was my question.
no, we haven't.
Okay, so I'll step back then.
Thank you.
I'm confused. We did
Well,
public
actually,
comment.
sorry, we just did public comment on Joe's comment. I apologize. Go ahead.
My question for you was, I know that a lot of people here tonight are concerned about the Hawks Nest Road issue, and I wasn't sure whether you were going to be taking
Madam
public
Chair, I
comment.
apologize for the interruption. We just need a name and an address for the record.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Margot Fenn, Queen Anne Road. What I wanted to know is, are you going to be taking public comment during the discussion under
Yes,
old business?
during the discussion.
Okay.
Yep. Is there anybody else for public comment announcement? I apologize, I blew right by that. Nobody? Okay. So on to the consent agenda. Item A,
I didn't know if there was anybody from the police department that wanted to
we're
speak.
gonna we're gonna talk on item A and then do our vote, and then Kevin's gonna come up, Chief's gonna come up.
Excellent. So I'll do item A separate. Move to approve the appointment of Elijah Beasley to student officer as recommended by the police chief, effective January 13, 2025.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Chief?
Good evening, Kevin Considine, Police Chief. It's always a great pleasure. First of all, thank you for the affirmative vote. It's always a great pleasure to stand before you with a new officer and to introduce you and the community to our newest officer. We currently have 4 vacancies in the police department. Elijah will make that now 3. Elijah is scheduled to go to the East Falmouth Police Academy on January 13th. East Falmouth is a new academy built, so it gives us a little more options between Plymouth and East Falmouth. I think it's easier to get to Plymouth than it is to Falmouth, but it's hopefully a little quicker to get him there. So we're very excited. Elijah's here with his family. Thank you for coming and supporting Elijah. That's really important in our business. So this still leaves us with 3 vacancies. We started another process. It's looking promising right now, and my hope is to be before you after that process with 3 people. That's not happening lately. We had 3 when Elijah went through, and Elijah was the only one that is before you tonight. So, and that says something for Elijah. So congratulations. Elijah grew up here in town. To me, that is extremely important for more reasons than one. Elijah graduated from Monomoy Regional High School and is currently, or has just finished up his degree in criminal justice from UMass Boston. So we can't wait for Elijah to start the academy, and looking forward to getting him on the road. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you all again for the
Thank you.
support.
Thank you.
And welcome, Elijah. We're
Thank you.
glad to have you.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Hey, Chief, real quickly, if I could, Madam Chair? Approximate timeframe on the academy? I forget how long those last.
Approximately 4 months.
1 month, okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
And then 3 months of field training. So we always say it, and it is true, by the time we start the process and get them on their own, it's well over a year, year and a half. It's a long process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the Select Board meeting minutes for December 2, 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And then we're going to go out of order to item A under old business. Project update presented by our Assistant Town Administrator, Megan Eldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This list in front of you looks a lot different than it did back in September when I had my last project update. We've removed 4 items that have been completed and are now no longer on my radar. So we've gone down to 58 projects and only 13 that are awaiting some sort of action. A couple of months ago, that number was twice as large at 26. So we have made quite a lot of progress on closing out projects as well as getting them started under contracts or in the IFB process. So we have 5 more projects that are complete. In your packet, I did color code them this time, so the green ones are done. Thank you to the police department. The majority are from the police department. And now we have 7 that are in the process of developing some sort of scope of service or next step. And those are in the light blue. And when you look through those, they're projects that have more than one part to them. So the golf cart barn has about $200,000 left in that article, and they're using that for several different projects.
Yeah.
And some of them are under $10,000, so they're picking away at that amount of money. They do have a larger amount that they're gonna be using to seal the floor in that barn. So they did not want us to use that as a remaining balance. They wanted to keep that article open. The sidewalk project, we have solicited engineering quotes for both the one in front of Brooks Park, Brooks Academy, Brooks Library. So that is on the contract awarded side of things. But we do have 2 other ADA sidewalks that we're looking into combining those 2 articles to do an engineering design for all of Harwich Center for the sidewalk project. And I've been working with Jamie to do more hearing room improvements. She has solicited quotes for monitors for this room, so we'll have monitors to look at rather than a screen up there. And the COC technology replacement is the police department, and we've been trying to pick that one off, as well as the AEDs for the beaches. Those are just projects we haven't gotten started on. And then in the purple in the bottom, those are ongoing as needed. And then we have those that are in process, that are things that will probably stay on the radar for quite some time because they're on an as-needed basis without one single contract. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Megan. I'll go to board members. Any questions on the list for Megan? Pete?
Well, and it's not to Megan, I think it's a discussion that needs to happen, whether it's us, ourselves, whether it's with the FinCom. But when it comes to some of these articles that are 7, 8 years old, 5, 6, 7 years old, whatever number you want to put on it, do we continue to leave them open? Do we return the money to the town and require them to go back to town meeting to seek funding again? Do we leave monies available in these articles so that they continue to do smaller projects that weren't necessarily brought to town meeting and approved it within the article? Those are the types of things I think we need to discuss and how we want to move forward with balances that remain in these articles.
Thank you, Pete. Don?
I'm good.
Everything?
Maybe nothing.
Michael?
No, I would agree with Pete. I think we have that information available. I know administration did a report on what was left in articles and some that are coming up this year, that some of that money might be used. But I agree, it's time to close them out.
Thank you. Joe?
Just as a follow-up on that, we can do that several different mechanisms. If you want to contemplate an omnibus article, to do that, we can do that. And just to put out there, any dollar amounts that are being used now still has to be vetted by accounting. So they can't just use money available, it has to be proven to relate back to the original article. So we are mindful of that, and that's part of our ongoing procurement. But as far as rebalancing, we can do that, we've talked about that before. So if you want me to contemplate an article, I can start working on that as well.
I think that would be helpful. We have talked about cleaning up those articles in the past, so. So while we're trying to get ready and ahead of the game, if we can, for town meeting, that would be helpful. Any other questions? I have no questions, so thank you, Megan. Thank you.
Welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
So now we'll go to our joint meeting with the Select Board and Finance Committee. Peter and wherever you want to come up to the table, and obviously don't have enough seats for everybody up here, but we have a couple.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
Hope everybody's having a good day. We are posted, so I'll call our meeting to order,
Great.
just so you know.
Sorry for that inelegant gesture, Madam Chair. The Finance Director will be joining us momentarily. Blend right in.
Good evening, Eric. So you're already called to order?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
By the way, I'll just point out, if I could, Madam Chair, that
Sure.
I asked Bob, our Vice Chair, to sit with me up here because he's he's our representative to that so-called four-member
Mhm.
team
Yep.
that will ultimately review finances from previous
Previous.
years.
Right. And they had their informal overview, Jeff,
Right.
Eric, and Joe.
Exactly.
So I'll go to you first in the sense that Munis report and, well, or let me go, sorry, excuse me. Let me go to Joe and Eric. Do you want to do any kind of overview prior to me going to Peter?
I'd like to just do a little brief
Sure.
overview. So, it's funny that you mentioned, carry forward articles. This report that you have now is all the expenditures for FY 2024. And it also includes, the carry forward articles. So, I know at the end of this report, it says like $8.6 million, like if you look on page 36, right at the end, it says available budget. Of that $8.6 million, $6.6 million are carry forward articles. So that's basically what we have to carry forward, articles, $6.6 million. So there's $2 million that's getting turned into free cash. So it's getting turned back to free cash. And that represents about like 2.7% of the entire expense budget. So with that said, I just wanted to review just quickly on the revenues. So we had $2 million in turbacks here. Our local receipt revenue was like $3.4 million above estimates. Basically, the big heavy hitters that really helped us out was like $1 million extra investment income over estimate, $638,000 in rooms tax, $500,000 in penalties and interest, $400,000 in motor vehicle excise, and $300,000 in recreation. And then the other thing that helped our free cash as well was there was $425,000 increase in collections from June 30th, 23 to June 30th, 24. And so that's that with the expenses. And just to recap, like the FY 24 status, DLS told us that did have a chance to look at our free cash submission in January, and I'm expecting, like I said before, like $5.5 million in certified free cash. So that's kind of like where we would start. So that's just like the basic overview. I know I talked with the vice chair before, and we had like a little meeting, and so that's it. I just wanted to give a little preface.
Thank you, Eric. Great. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just before we get too deep into the discussion, I am puzzled at the $5.5 million figure. Because based on what we were hearing last year in January, it was 5.98, and it wound up getting certified at just south of 3 million, which, if you're correct, that means we only generated about 2 million free cash, maybe 2.5?
I think we generated like this year like 5 million in free cash.
But wouldn't there have been a rollover from the under calculation of last year?
Actually, it's the unexpended free cash.
We were told that it was going to be around 6 million.
Yeah.
We sent to the state from your predecessor a request because we asked them, they don't tell us.
The only thing that I did notice when we're setting the tax rate, is that last year, you taxed $1 million under the levy limit, so maybe that's where that extra money came from. Because when we did the recap, we were looking at last year's recap, 24 to, so maybe that was it. But I'm only showing here that the free cash that wasn't appropriated was like 64,000, so 64,000 unappropriated free cash that got turned in.
I'm still puzzled.
All right, so we can be offline about it. We have all the calculations here.
it seemed to me that the argument she was making was that the 3 million was unrealized, even though historically, if we had done our job and gotten bills out there and collected on them, that it would have been closer to the 6 million. But then that would have necessarily have become free cash, because we did eventually do that, and it would show up in this year.
Yeah, there was like 425,000 that was collected more, the receivables went down, so 425,000 contributed to the free cash this year on FY '24. So what were you expecting, like 6 million?
6 to 6.5, yeah.
So I'm thinking like between 5.5 and 5.7 as a high water mark. That's what I'm thinking, what we put in.
Yeah, but we would have requested a number.
So that's basically what it's coming down to. So I don't know, I wasn't here before, I don't know what the basis of that opinion was.
Because we had a lot of things that we were looking at to be utilizing those funds for, in the immortal words of Everett Dirksen, a million here and a million there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money.
That's right.
So if you shave off $1 million,
Can't spend money you don't have.
or we don't think we have.
That leads me to believe that we did get certified, the audit's underway for FY '24 as well, so that kind of leads into that. And then the CPC audit's underway as well.
Right.
So those two things are going.
And is it, did you say mid-January for free cash is when they're?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. They punted it because they were concentrating on sent people's tax rates, and then they just put free cash off to the side. Yeah.
Don?
But just to be clear for the audience's purposes, it's not going to be a mystery. They either certify, we provide the number that they certify or don't certify. It's not that they come up with
No.
a number themselves.
We give them the numbers, and then they kind of give us an audit.
Uh-huh.
They have approved, they'll say, all right, you said you turned back this, yeah. So we give them the number, and then they test the validity of it.
That's what I'm saying, though.
Yes, that's
We
right.
we have given them the number, so
That's
I'd kind of like to
That's why I feel
revisit.
confident between 5.5 and 5.7, because that's the number that we gave them.
Okay.
You all set?
I still don't know the answer.
No, I guess we'll hear it.
Madam Chair, could I ask through you or request that the notes that Eric had regarding the income side of things that you rattled off and went through, that we make part of the minutes of this meeting, or a distribution at least to the Finance Committee and to the Board of Selectmen, so we have them?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. All right, that'd be great.
Can you read that?
And I would also ask through you, Madam Chair, under normal circumstances, Eric, whatever normal is, but if you go back to if you had been in that position at the end of the fiscal year, what would be a normal amount of time to get the report we have in front of us today? It's been 5.5 months. Would you expect it's 2.5, 3 months? What would you expect?
Probably expect, within 30 days, because the last warrant is usually like 2 weeks after the fiscal year. So you could probably get a draft within 30 days, and then once all the encumbrances and stuff, then probably 60 days after that. So if I say by like August 31st, September 1st.
Yeah, so by Labor Day would be a reasonable
Right,
expectation
absolutely.
under normal circumstances.
Yes,
We know we're not.
absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
And I will say, or just note that in this report, the adjustments or transfers that were made were, for the most part, items that the, you folks, I believe, and the Finance Committee voted before the middle of July, consistent with
That's
the
right.
requirements, to make the adjustments so that this process could move forward. Right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I was happy to hear from the police chief that we now only have 3 openings. We've been carrying 5 for, quite a while. And it shows up in the report, and it's kind of a little bit misleading because you're identifying a lot of extra overtime versus not taking, enough salary kind of thing. The other one is that the position of town engineer, I don't know what the intent is, if we're ever gonna fill it, not fill it, sub it out, whatever we're gonna do. But I think that needs to get resolved at some point in time, I would suggest.
I think that this board would agree with you. We've been looking for some time for an engineer without any kind of fruitful profits along the way, but I think that probably it's a discussion about whether or not, we can figure out a better way to fit that person in terms of roles and
Yeah,
responsibilities.
you know what, just me speaking, I view the town engineer's role as also as a project manager. And we hear about all these projects that are lined up and, maybe some are not moving as fast as we thought. I personally think having a town engineer would help alleviate some of that and push that forward and give it a focus,
Mhm.
So I think that's a good thing.
Mhm.
I would ask a question on the Munis report. Is it possible to print out a version without the articles in it?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, all right, because I'll point out Dana DeCosta on our board took the liberty to put it together for us without the articles. And it's obviously a big difference, as you mentioned, with the articles, so.
Absolutely, like before the meeting, in preparation for this meeting tonight, I actually did print out one without the articles. So I'll put this in my pile with my notes and so I can have a copy of that.
Okay, and if that could be circulated to us, that would be, or through me, that would be helpful. It just gets you focused on the operating budget as opposed to
Versus the
getting
articles.
confused with the articles and, trying to track down what's been spent on articles for the year and that kind of thing, so.
I think that makes sense as well as what we talked about, which is trying to clean up the articles anyways.
Yeah, and those are my major comments. Bob, do you have comments about
Madam Chair.
what was provided?
In the spirit of sharing documents, will you share that document with the board?
Yeah, you can have this one. Make copies, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Is it any way we could get that electronically, or is it a PDF?
yeah, we'll get it to you.
I didn't have that in my pocket tonight. I did have this. So it's not attached to you?
Cheat in your pocket, I don't want it.
But I would request, though, it'd be better if it comes out of Munis and spits out a report, and then we're
Right.
dealing with what actually comes out of our system, right?
That's right, and I
This
just
is the
have to give
important thing.
kudos to Megan Green, your assistant town accountant. Then I sat down with her today, so, yep, you get it. I have it right here, so.
Yeah.
You asked for the notes, I'll have the notes, and I'll have that report too. I'll give you.
It's all helpful, because,
Absolutely.
you've gotten a great education in the town of Harwich in the last couple of months, and we want to make sure we get that
Yeah, I can't wait to
memorialized.
graduate.
We want you to be Santa Claus. Santa Claus to us. So Bob, did you have any comments or observations?
Well, I additionally to everybody else, had noticed the impact of all those articles and all the unspent articles, and the role that they played in getting to that $8 million at the end. And I think for people getting this off, anyone perhaps getting this off the packet and get confused quickly also by whether they think those are the budget numbers at the last page or in fact are really not representing the operating budget by having all these millions of dollars in it.
I could also offer another report that just has the articles. So we'd have one report without the articles, one with the articles.
Of course you want
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Go.
Well, listen, I'd also like to know, just because we're on that topic a little bit, in Munis, can you print out like pie charts that show you, for instance, the impact of all the insurance that we pay, for instance, on the total budget?
That, not directly from Munis, no. We'd have to create something.
Create it
We'd use-
ourselves.
We'd use underlying data. Whatever anybody envisions for a pie chart or whatever, we could create, but we'd have to do it. Yeah, Munis doesn't say, graphical depiction of the report. It does. It won't do it, so.
When you're referencing insurance, are you talking all insurance, talking
Well, you
health,
either
liability?
lump it or you break it down one or the other. I mean, you could have one pie chart that just breaks down the insurance and all the elements of it. Another one that just shows total insurance, everything insurance relative to the total budget. Salary and wages, overtime, stuff, that kind of thing, just to make it simple for people. I think also with debt, the same way. Have you been involved with debt service or the debt schedule at all?
A little bit with your interim treasurer collector, and you've been, these guys did a great job.
He's now the interim finance director.
Yeah, right, so.
Ed
yeah,
Spellman.
Ed Spellman's like the interim, yeah, right. So no, they're all over the debt. They
Okay.
can get, yep.
All right, I just think conveying all this stuff to the
It's
folks that are
simplistic.
sitting out there in TV land and behind me,
Yep.
It's a little hard for them to digest all this line by line. And
Yeah, we could work on graphical depiction of the data in a simple format.
Okay, I'm sorry, Bob, I
No,
interrupted you. Go
no.
ahead.
So again, that was just to reiterate everybody else's comments on the article component, and certainly looking forward to this kind of review of all these projects, open articles, and whether or not something can be done about closing some of them, closing many of them, whatever. But it's very noticeable if you go through the packet and see how many are there. Perhaps we can get a comment from Eric on, there's now a line item that I don't remember, a line item, not the column, that I don't remember seeing before, which is encumbered expenses, popping up with items in it. Eric, can you describe what that is? Because it's separate from the budgeted amounts in the various categories.
Yeah, usually, I'd have to know specifically, usually the encumbered expenses are, if there's something in the budget, 24, that they don't have the bill in yet, then they create an encumbrance for it, so they encumber that, so like, say I ordered my office supplies on June 28th, the bill isn't coming yet, they didn't have time to process it, they send in a request to encumber it, but I don't know if there's a line item that actually says encumbrance in there.
Well, I'll pick on one, page 3.
Oh, yeah, this basically was, page 3, right.
Page 3, right in the middle.
Yep, I see it.
Yep.
So basically what this was money from FY '23 that wasn't spent, but it was for a '23 invoice, so the previous accountant created a line item to represent that, so when the bills came in '24, she could pay them. So that was like carried forward amounts from the previous year, and that's why it's in the encumbrance column. So, again, I'll use that example.
It's also been expended.
Yeah, they've all been expended. If you notice, like, there's no money turned back here, but that's what it is. It's money from the previous budget that you put in a separate line item, so she could pay, prior year bills, like she encumbered the money. So if I have services in June, I'm not gonna give it the bill till August. She puts an encumbered line item in there. So that's basically what it is.
So these came not from year 24,
But 23.
but from an earlier year?
Right.
Is the idea?
That's right.
So it still got paid
In 20,
in 24 with funds from 24.
right. Funds from the early year that got,
Encumbered.
That were encumbered in the
Encumbered.
earlier year?
right. So see if I had $100 in my budget, and I, spent 80, I had 20 left over, but I had another $20 bill that was coming up, that would be encumbered, so the accountant would encumber it in 23, so it would show that zero got turned back, then she booked that budget in 24 for the $20.
So it's not part of, therefore, the year-to-year?
No, it's not.
It's not part of the 24 expended?
Probably should just ignore that, it's not, the physical cash was expended, but budgetary, it's 23 budgets paid in 24. 23 budget that was paid in 24.
Another kind of...
Bob, can I
yes.
build on that for a moment?
Sure.
Sorry, through you, Madam
Sure,
Chair.
go ahead.
So if you look at the munis report on page 36, with the grand totals, you'll see that there's a dollar amount associated with encumbrances. So, Eric, the question I would have is, what happened to that 73,000 and change at the end of fiscal year '24? Does that carry into?
That's gonna carry forward to 25. Like, this way that was done last year was more of a manual way of doing it. When we did this, you're supposed to let the system kind of do it, and that's where that 73,000, there's a different way to do the encumbrances. That 73,000 is actually get carried forward to be spent in 25. So it.
From the FY '24
Oh, right.
budget.
Right, that's correct.
So it will show up as line items similar to the
In the FY '25.
example
That's
in
correct.
next year?
That's correct.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Another kind of structural question that, again, some of this is perhaps for people listening, I'm not sure that want to go through the report. While we did transfers to, at the end of the year, we did some transfers to help with what items where there were budgetary problems or expenditure versus budgetary problems. There's certainly numerous line items in here that were overspent relative to their budgets. How is that handled in terms of statutory accounting or some such thing? Is that okay to be overspending budget line items?
It's not okay, we're not supposed to go over, so that shouldn't have happened, like those little overages, but, what you're supposed to do is, whatever deficit you have like that, you're supposed to raise them on the tax rate recap for the next year. But the way they did it this year, it just kinda, they were expended, and so it's basically reducing your free cash, because the budget line item was overexpended. So statutorily, what you're supposed to do is, it's called a legal appropriation deficit. And it goes on the recap, so whatever, say if it's like 30,000 over, you have to put 30,000, appropriation deficit. And then you raise that on the recap, and it gets covered that way. But, that shouldn't have happened, so hopefully at the end of this year, the planes didn't come in with the transfers in time, that was just, error, mistake, you shouldn't have any deficits. The only legal deficit that there should be is for snow and ice. So when I saw the over expenditures too, and,
There are many.
yeah, the horse was already out of the barn at that point.
Right.
So if we had to turn back the clock, so this year we have to be more proactive and basically be more strict when the bills are processed. If it's going over budget, just deny it. Don't put it through and hope for a transfer after the fact. So we've been kind of a little bit more strict with that this year. I think sometimes they say, oh, we'll let it overexpend, and we'll go to the FinCom and Board of Selectmen, we'll get a transfer after the fact. But what we're trying to do in the accounting department now is like, if it's gonna be over budget, don't even approve it. And that's why, for example, I think you guys had, was a reserve fund transfer request, because it was something that was gonna go over, and we said, no, be proactive, do it. And, so you might see some of those. Once May 1st starts, we can start doing line item transfers between funds. But the only way to cover an over budget item now during the fiscal year is by the reserve fund or have another town meeting. That's the only way you can spend more than what's budgeted. So the bottom line is, you saw deficits, there were deficits, they shouldn't have been there, they should have been covered by transfers. And as you can see, there was plenty enough money to transfer back and forth, but it wasn't done, and it should have been done.
So to clarify that a little bit, if we go on page 27, look at library expenses, and I'm not picking on that, but it just, if you look at that, there's a line item called library materials for $173,000, $173,019. And then it looks like under it are all the things you would categorize materials as, like books and videos and whatever. Then in the budget, as far as loading munis, are all zero. And then it looks like what happened was that the materials item, in total, the 173 says it wasn't expended, and there's a balance left. But all those things, books and periodicals and audio, video, blah, 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 had numbers that, probably added up to that 173 or close to it.
That's right. So when town meeting votes the budgets, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they'll vote it like library salaries, library expenses, separate and total. And, they just show budget, the department budget only.
It's Article 4 is an operating budget.
Okay.
The number in the article is the number in the table, which is the number in the appendix. In the appendix, there's a breakout, department by salary and wages and expenses. So the moderator takes the vote on the total dollar amount.
Okay. So, but basically in this instance, we usually let line items go over as long as the total expense budget is not gonna go over. So this library one that you mentioned, if you look at the bottom line, it says library expenses, it says the total budget was $300,400. The amount expended in total was $297,000. It was $2,418 for a turn back.
So the point I'm trying to get to is, you said before that, you can't exceed a budget, basically, right?
Oh, yeah, but
within this expense category for this particular business unit, call it that, the library, the numbers can go all over the place as long as the total number
That's
doesn't
correct.
exceed the budget, right?
Right, the county wouldn't consider it overexpended unless the total expenses for the budget were gonna go over.
Right, so we're not sitting here saying if someone uses up their electric budget in September, we're not gonna turn their lights off, they're gonna be allowed to, in total.
That's correct, absolutely.
Right, in total, keep going until we get to the end of the year.
Absolutely,
Right?
So the total for the category,
correct. The department and the category. Yep, so usually salaries and expenses, that's kind of what we usually do. And I'll talk to Joe about it. Some towns go department level, so if as long as the whole department is not over, then they allow it. So,
and that is, to back to my cryptic, that is okay.
yes. I have to talk with Joe, you know,
In my intent, I wanna make sure we're consistent from year to year
Yeah,
as to
yeah.
what we do. I mean, that's
yep,
what we should be, right? So anybody can look at this and understand consistently
right,
how to interpret it.
yep.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman, if I could, so I would like to take this moment to interject to make sure I'm correct when I say that we are not in deficit in the town of Harwich. We do not deficit spend, and specifically for us, and I think this is what you were getting to, Mr. Chairman, the town of Harwich has had the practice of salaries and expenses for salaries and expenses. Salaries and wages for salaries and wages, and expenses for expenses. So anytime that the Finance Committee, the Select Board, the Administrator have been presented transfers from a Finance Director, it's been in that mode. Because I think that matches what our Article 4 shows, which is what matches what our Appendix B shows. So I'm looking to my Finance Director to say, does that make sense?
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
that makes sense, you know.
So we
No
really
further
should-
questions, Your Honor?
So we really should be focused on line items in Appendix B relative to the, whether or not something has been overspent or not. Because those are essentially the categories being approved in the budget.
So as I understand it, the categories are salaries and wages
And expenses.
versus expenses, correct?
Thank you.
Don't worry if they bought more video things and they bought magazines.
That's right.
It's the total that matters.
Yep.
Okay, do you have anything else?
No, that,
Okay.
I think, hopefully we'll get back a little, not today, to the whole
Yeah,
two
yeah,
line
yeah.
item.
I'd like to turn to the rest of my board and just see if they have any
Yeah, sure.
questions. Dana, do you have?
We get that a lot at the meetings.
Scott Norm is on that call. I don't know if that's him. SN. There he is. There he is.
Scott was on that
Looking
call.
at us. Hi, Scott. He might be in Costa Rica. I don't know. Whatever, Dana.
Yes,
Thank you.
I hope,
We'll get to you later, sir.
The different versions of the report will probably help me more than anybody, because I spend the most time on this kind of stuff, just because of the way I'm built. So it would have taken another 20 ins and outs worth of paperwork to fix all the little things that were over or under, and we didn't get to it. So we're bad. We'll get to it next year, because we've got somebody in the chair. And that's about the biggest thing that I found overall in this is, and it's not just department heads or whatever, there's a lot of positions that we budget for in the town that don't get filled or aren't filled the entire year. And it's rank and file police officers, it's, specials, jobs at the highway department, it's all kinds of things, all over the whole thing. And that costs a lot of us a lot of money as far as taxpayers go. And I think that's something that this is 24, we're in the middle of 25, we're getting ready to do 26, numbers-wise. We should have at least one meeting on that and what ideas we could put together to solve some of that, and just how we approach things and so forth.
I think some of that goes to the struggles that not just Harwich is having, but all the towns are having in
Right.
terms of attracting people, right? Because of the salaries and the cost of housing and the
Right.
lack of housing for
Yeah.
apartments, et cetera. So, to your point, there's money sitting there, and then what happens is
We
overtime
can't get
because
someone in the
there's
chair.
nobody.
Yeah, it costs us more money to get technical help because we have to pay for it through a company which is usually more per hour, and it costs us more for standard help, rank and file help, because it's overtime. So, looking at those kind of things, and you know, I've been able to see, because of the state board, I've been able to see how a lot of other towns, Western Mass is going through the same type of thing, are starting to tackle these kind of things, and maybe we could have the little group get together and talk about those kind of things or something like that. That's about my biggest thing, but I had to do it this way. I had to. No, it's no. I just got what I was fed, and I had, you know, the weekend to put it together, so.
Thank you, Dana.
All right, Scott Norm, you're out there and wherever you are?
Yeah, thanks, Peter.
Yep.
A lot of this was already said, but the report that I spent a lot of time trying to figure out why that variance was so big, $8 million, and I think I did something like Dana did with 3 columns, one for capital outlays getting carried forward, one for warrant articles getting carried forward, and another for all other, and I came up with around $2 million too, so we're all on the same wavelength there. It would be nice for these reports to have a bottom line that approximated the free cash in the variance, which I think would have happened if the articles and the capital outlay roll forwards were excluded and the receipts were included. Then I think that bottom line variance would have been something like the $5 or $6 million that it seems like free cash is headed towards. So that would just be a much easier format to follow. And for us on the Finance Committee to do any work with it, it would be great to get this in Excel as well. That would be my only technical question or request.
Do you have a problem putting Munis into Excel?
Not at all, just
Okay.
press a button.
Okay, oh,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
All right.
You might have to format it a little bit the way you want it,
Yeah.
but no, it.
Thanks.
Matt, yeah, thank you.
I would also suggest, Madam Chair, that if we start doing different reports, that somehow we control it so that we know what versions we sent out or what format we sent out and who has it, so that then when we're talking, we can say, yes, it's, you know, version 27.
Yeah,
So we're all
good
on the
point.
same page, as opposed to I have a different version than you have.
Yeah, because as an accountant, I always like to get the reports off the software, even though it's not most aesthetically pleasing because of the control issue, because if you get numbers here and thrown on an Excel spreadsheet, there's more room forever. But some of the stuff that might be asked for, you might need to do that. And as far as like the Munis reports, it has a little footer right here, so we know which version is. It says, you know, this was generated on 11/22.
Yep.
Something like that.
Mine does have my name and the date on
Thank you.
it. No, it's not.
Okay, I think we're good, and we appreciate all the work Eric's been doing and everybody that's been supporting what he's done. We know it's been a tough situation. I think it's refreshing to hear that in the future, we could have an expectation that Labor Day might be the time when we get what we have in front of us today, almost at Christmas, right?
That's right.
So-
Let me go to my board. Michael, you have any? Jeff?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank
you.
Well, you can count on me. As long as everybody's still here, because I was going to say this later on, but it's pertinent to knowing where our money goes and where it's sitting, waiting to be spent. And so,
To get that tie is where it went.
ho, ho. Eric, you remember a few months ago I asked you this question, so I'm going to repeat it again. I had originally suspected that the fees for the golf course were kind of inextricably tied with some sort of revolving fund. They're not. But they were, in part, dumped into a fund that anticipated being used in future out years for golf-related upgrades. And as a consequence of that, I asked for a 5-year in and out about how that fund functions, because I'm not sure anybody, even Finance Committee, I'm not sure that you folks know what we're carrying as a balance in that or what we've been using it for. I certainly don't, and I'm pretty sure that one of the major things that we're elected to do as select board members is to follow the finances of the town. So once again, I'd like to be able to see what that looks like over a 5-year period about what's coming in and what it was sent out to pay, because I think that initially we had anticipated, like 10 or 15 years ago, that that was going to wind up fueling payments against debt, for debt service. So that it would wind up coming into that fund and then go, since we didn't have an aggregated amount that would pay for the whole project, it would just float the note forward in payments. But I don't know that. I don't know that anybody sitting here knows that. So I'd really like to know that, because we're going to be asked to certify fees tonight, and I don't really care what other towns are doing as much as I care about, okay, so how are these funds being utilized? What are they doing? And what percentage are they supporting the golf course in capital needs and/or operating needs?
So, we can provide that report of those funds. 'Cause from my understanding is, because we did have a talk on the fees and such, and with the people from the golf, and it was kind of enlightening, like but a certain portion, you pay one fee, like one greens fee, but like a certain dollar amount or percentage goes automatic to a capital fund, and the other portion goes to the general fund. So
That's what I'm trying to get a handle on.
Yeah.
What is that?
right, so we did like is like golf, like I'm not saying, what I'm thinking that you're asking is, what was the total golf revenue that came in, and what portion of that went into the special revenue accounts, and out of those special revenue accounts, what were the expenditures out of those accounts?
Over a 5-year period.
Yeah,
That's
5 years.
exactly the conversation, but I still haven't seen that. That's why I'm saying that it would be really nice. We told the golf committee they shouldn't be, foraying into that conversation, but certainly we need to know
Right.
at this level, okay, do we have a fund that exists that survives fiscal years, that rolls forward? And if so, what's that amount? What's the total that we're carrying, and what's been spent over 5 years, and what's been brought in over 5 years?
So that can be done.
Yeah, so maybe if you could circulate that
Absolutely.
information.
For clarification, do you want that for all the receipts reserved accounts?
Would like that through all the receipt, for all those accounts, but the golf particularly, because I was trying to get a handle on that. Again, it was a misdirection on my part, because the revolving fund actually only resides in the pro shop as a mechanism. The rest of the operation of the golf course has nothing to do with that.
So 5-year takeaway.
It has the accounts.
Yeah, we can do that.
You good, John?
Yeah.
Just looking forward to next month's update on quarter end, see where we stand year-to-date, and also, as we talked about prior, where we stand Q2 '25 versus Q2 '24.
Yeah, I was
In some
thinking,
detail.
I was thinking that too, because it's gonna be nice, 12/31, we'll have 50%. We'll be able to see what's going on. Okay.
Anything else? I just had one question. I knew, and we had talked about this last year, so I just want to get a hold on whether or not you guys are looking to go to 125 in your reserve. I'm personally am fine with that. I just
Yeah,
would
no, we
like
are.
us to know that.
We have actually surveyed all the towns on the Cape, and
Yeah.
we're like the lowest.
Okay.
And if you're gonna start putting a little bit, I won't say pressure, but get a little tighter with budgeting, it just gives a relief valve for everybody to know it's there if they need it.
Right.
If something comes up.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. Oh, sorry, Jenny?
Good evening, Ginny Hugh from the library. I was out walking the high school track, doing my Nordic walking, and listening to the meeting, and I heard the library get mentioned, and I just came right over here.
I ran right over.
Running.
Luckily, I wasn't at home. I wasn't in my pajamas, so I didn't have to change. But, yeah, because I just don't want to, I understand your point about whether it's a line item budget or the whole expense budget. But the library materials are a little different for one reason, and that's because we have to report those categories separately to the Mass Board of Library Commissioners as part of certification. And so we don't budget for that. We don't know how much we're going to spend on videos, or it depends, or books. It depends what's popular and what the waiting lists are. And so it's budgeted as a whole number of $173,0119 last year, and we spent almost all of it, returned $4.52.
Yeah, and that's exactly what.
So it's no way, it's not, yeah, but we don't have to put it in Munis that way. We have our own spreadsheet, so if that's preferable, we cannot, we just report it as a lump together. It's not like we would go, okay, our gas line is down and we're gonna spend some of that in library materials. It's more of a special thing because of state reporting. So the category as a whole is what we budget, but then we spend out of the subcategories. I just don't want everyone to go away and think
No,
that there
thank
was
you
a
for the
problem.
And I
clarification.
just want to make sure everybody understood that's how it's reported here. So you're fine.
Okay,
You're fine.
all right.
Thank you, Ginny.
I can go walk again?
Good, good.
You can go off and do,
Right,
you can
and
do your
then
stretching
Peter,
exercises now.
Reach out probably like mid-January for a return meeting where we'll come back
That'd
after
be great. Yeah, I
the
think
other
the more we
information.
talk, the better it's going to be, and the more we see data.
Right, exactly.
Good. So we good?
Great.
I just give me a second to
Sure.
adjourn my meeting. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the finance.
I moved in a second. You guys all okay? You want to stay home? All right. Okay. Michelle, did you have any questions, by the way? You came in late. Okay, good. We're good, thank you.
All
We
right, thank
appreciate
you.
the opportunity, and thank you, Eric, for doing all your work.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
You too. Merry Christmas.
Christmas. Yeah.
No.
No,
Chris- Christmas Eve?
no, we don't, yeah. Okay. Now on to our committee presentations. I'm moving up.
Move or down.
Yeah, I was gonna go the other way.
Could be a down.
Well, monetarily. Good evening.
Good evening.
I was just pointing out, Larry, that my name on the report is Kennedy, so I think I'm moving up financially.
I don't know, you go to Ireland, there's an awful lot of candidates.
I'm trying to help you out. I misspelled Brenda's name as well. I need admit help.
Okay, well,
Well,
thank you
thanks.
for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I did post a meeting because at one time I thought Brendan Lowney was going to join us. But I did send you discussion points because I know you're busy. I want to go through this so you get through your regular schedule.
Will you just state your name?
I'm Larry Valentine, Chair of the Harwich Affordable Housing Committee.
Bob Spencer, is that Affordable Housing.
Thank you, Julie, for that. I think one of you mentioned that we have a engaged trust members. And so I led that as my opening comment, that our committee is made up of 5 very passionate and engaged members. The members are me, Bob Spencer, Brendan Lowney, Claudia Williams, and then Judy Kavanaugh, name correct, as your member to our trust. In terms of, I'll go through this and take questions, of course. In terms of finances, according to our September 11th, 24 accounting, the net available funds in the trust was $1.798 million. That's been, since that report was out on September 11th, we've committed $605,000 to 5 Bell's Neck building. And as of 6/30/24 for the last fiscal year, we had $1.59 million in our Affordable Housing Spatial Purpose Stabilization Fund. I've requested, and Joel's working with me, to put an article in our next town meeting to transfer $1.59 million of that from the Spatial Stabilization Fund to the Affordable Trust. And then we'll have additional receipts, of course, coming in this year. Let me comment, because you had the Financial Committee here before, on how great Megan Green has been to our committee. She's been extremely responsive. What we ask a question about, and she'd probably give me more information than I know what to do with. I've asked for quarterly reports, and so we'll have another report coming out probably in the next couple of weeks. So it's been a great help. In terms of ongoing building, we accepted Penrose's bid for the development of 456 Queen Anne Road. We accepted that. That was in August of this year, August 13th. We accepted that. We discussed the land lease agreement. That was accepted. Our next step on that is to execute a land lease agreement and then a ground lease agreement. We met in executive session on October 13th to discuss that. We then discussed it very briefly in public comment, but we now, and that's gone slower than I would hope, because as you know, that starts the process. Once that happens, then we would go into a working together with you folks for an eligibility letter, and then Penrose would then, with that information, would work with ZBA for a comprehensive permit according to the 40B process. So we've fallen behind schedule on that, and I'm not the most patient person, as many of you know who I've worked with, and so I'm hoping to pick that up, because once that takes place, it can sit in the state for a long time. So the sooner we get it started, the sooner we can get moving on it. I did get a note from the town administrator this morning that the land lease agreement that we had reviewed as a trust, the attorneys and the procurement officer is ready to move on to the next step and work on a ground lease. So I'm hoping that will be relatively quick. The next on our agenda is as you know, I'm repeating what you folks all know. We approved $476,000 for 3 one-bedroom apartments on 205 Bank Street, the old fire station. They gave us a report last Tuesday, right? Tuesday. Thank you. And it's going great. They're waiting for some final touches, and they're hoping that those 3 apartments will be ready to rent possibly May, June of this year. They've contracted with outside help to go through the lottery system and fill out all the forms with restricted deed in that format, so it meets the qualifications as affordable housing. After that, we've approved $605,000 for 2 one-bedroom apartments and 1 two-bedroom apartment at 5 Bell's Neck Development. And that's another great way for us to tie into a developer is actually working on creating 7 more market-based apartments and restoring the old West High School. It allows us to tie in and be next door to them. And the way the state works, because the requirement for affordable housing is that it has to be, I think, 20% of the entire project. Since 3 of the 7 fill that criteria, we get credit in the subsidized housing inventory, so-called SHI list, not for 3 apartments, but for 7 apartments. 10. For 10 apartments. Yeah. That's why Bob is here to correct me. I should have had him, I should have had him correct your spelling. And so that will add 10 more then to the SHI list, which helps us a little bit move towards our 10% goal as we move forward. We also, this spring, or this summer, started a rental assistance program, and we've approved putting in $150,000 in the pot for that. That's been on the street now. We've had, almost immediately, we had 7 applications for those funds, and I'm told that that's better than some of the other towns in terms of, I don't know if that's better or worse. Quite frankly, it's better that it's gotten out there, people know about it. It's a shame that people need the money so badly that they've come to us. And so we went with Homeless Prevention Council to do that. We had several folks, companies, talk to us about managing that program. Claudia Williams carried a lot of legwork on this, but the Homeless Prevention Council impressed us because of their strong marketing strength. the information we got was some of the rental assistance programs that didn't work as well as they should was because people didn't know about it. And so they've really been out and telling people it's available. And they had strong management credentials. And they were the strongest in having case management because they do the case management themselves. The other couple we looked at provided case management, but they outsourced it. So this was, we got great feedback. And that seems to be maybe the most important credential is you want to help people that need help. Excuse me for the bad grammar, but to provide financial education and so on to help them get out of that. And so it started well, and we'll see how it goes. Next on my discussion points with you, we have asked the Community Preservation Committee for $750,000 this year. We have almost a standard ask of $500,000 because, as you know, the trust is set up to accumulate money so we can spend it when it's available. And so we're always trying to stockpile money in that trust fund. And Don, I know you bring this up every so often, so thank you.
I've been carrying the spear for you, trust me.
I listen to that. So we've asked again, so $750,000 to $500,000. Based on the initial request for the 150, we've asked for $250,000 to beef up our rental assistance, because I don't think that's going away. Now, CPC hasn't voted on it yet, so we'll see what their final, and of course they have their own budget constraints, but that's our request. We also, and Bob, I'm doing all the talking, so chime in.
You're doing great.
We're also trying to be creative and look at ways that we can help people. And we listened to got an email and listened to Noreen Donahue at our last meeting that suggested that we should look into, can we help people with accessory dwelling apartments? That possibly we could give them some money to finish that off as a rental assistance, restricted deed. We're working through that. It seems possible. We just have to work out the legal ramifications, be sure, but it'd be another way possibly to use some of our funds to create more housing for people that can't afford the money to remodel their house to make it work. And we're always, and we continue to look for ways that we can help on the housing issues. That's the dot points I put together for you. And again, I apologize for not knowing your name here, but I'll try.
No problem, Larry. Thank you very much for the report. So.
Certainly, any questions or comments?
Right. We'll go to board members. Michael, you have anything?
Great job. I mean, it's nice to see the forward motion. You guys really have done a lot of work in the last couple of years, so thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
You're welcome, and it's been a pleasure.
Yep.
And thank you as well. I do have a question on the 7 applicants that you received for the rental assistance. Will that encumber the entire $150,000, or?
No.
How, can you, I don't know how this
We
plays
were,
out.
I think we met, I think our maximum was $50,000 per year. It was $500, so this, we have ways to go on that. Yeah, no, we're covered. But a good question. We can't overdo it. But,
Yeah, no, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine's going to be a little bit deeper. As you pointed out, I've been kind of aggressively pursuing the idea that you guys need liquidity. And the whole point of a trust is to be able to jump on a deal in between town meetings. So I've been adamant that these CPC agreements don't relate to the money that you guys get, because there is no beginning, middle, and end. You report within 3 years you spent it out, or else we'll take it back from you. I think that's absurd. Several things. The rental assistance, it's not completely true that people didn't know about them. What happened during COVID is the rental assistance programs, they were shoveling money out the door, but they came with such strings attached that almost nobody could qualify to disperse them. So I applaud that you're working on those right now, because people are going to be able to know that it exists, because the other was more transitory. It just showed up. There was a lot of money. People couldn't meet the criteria. Then that was the end. So it's it's valuable to have that tool available to you. The accessory, the restricted deeds for accessory apartments, that's going to be daunting because I found the biggest resistance point for that is, yeah, you could help them build the apartment, but then if they go to sell their house later on, it comes fully loaded with a deed restriction that will be inherited by whoever it is who buys it, because it doesn't go away upon a sale. It's durable. So somewhere or another, we got to figure out a way to be able to do what you're trying to do without making people so reticent that they just won't get involved in the process at all because they feel like now part of their home is owned by somebody else and they'll never be able to pass a title at the true value of their property because it's going to come with that restriction already loaded in.
Yeah. Thank you, Don. You made 3 points. Let me see if I remember them. One was working with CPC. We've had numerous, I know I've had numerous discussions with CPC on the, and they've at least informally agreed that they want reports from us, but they're not in any way going to try to call back the money. There's a couple, I think you pointed out, it's not the right anyway.
Yeah, I balked at actually signing that grant agreement because I don't think it's germane to a fiduciary.
We've had those discussions. On the terms of marketing, that's your information is probably better than mine. What I got was anecdotal information that people didn't know about it. They could be more involved in that. So I'll take your comment on that I probably may have overstated it. The third item is, that was a discussion we had, in fact, at our last meeting regarding the ADU units, is that there's some hurdles to work out. You know, this discussion possibly if someone owns a house and maybe they could put the ADU unit as restricted, and then, you know, if they pass away, if the elderly or something, maybe then the whole house becomes restricted. There's some hurdles to go through, but we're not giving up until we know if those are, if it's worthwhile doing it. But we don't have any person doing that now. We need to put a mechanism in place and look at what the ramifications are and whether it's agreeable or not. But I still will point out that it's our effort to look at being creative. It may work, it may not work, so we're going to explore it.
And there's one last thought, but sure, go ahead.
Let me just jump on what you were just saying, Larry, and that is that we realize that this is a morass, and we are very clear that very shortly we're going to need council's help to really help sort through it. And so one of our questions was, should we be using or relying upon town council, or should we be getting our own? Suggestion has been that we would be relying on town council, but that would be really helpful to have town council at our next meeting so we can continue this conversation with some clarity.
For whatever it's worth, when the Marsline property was bought, it was bought with town council, with council out of Boston, not by town council. But a final thought is the trust agreement. I know you and I have had discussions about that in the past. Not that I want any comment at all tonight, but I mean, it's worth a dive into the thing. You've got actual practical experience at how it looks being used on the ground. And I've said before, even benign things like references to the board. What board? The select board, the trustees, the board of trustees. So there's certain things that have to actually be looked at there because they're vague. And we kind of rushed into it, which was good because, I mean, there was a certain immediacy to the problem, but there are things that I suspect that you'd want to at least look at. Whether you want to recommend they change or not, I don't know, but it's been years now since it's been in operation.
I do remember that conversation, Don. That's some items. I know Joel and I have had some discussion about looking at some other items as well, so we'll see how the timing goes.
But thank you for everything you guys are doing.
You're welcome.
No, I echo the thank you, and the report was comprehensive, so I appreciate that, and I was able to take a look at it ahead of time, so thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you again very much.
Thank you.
And you know where we are if you have any questions or comments.
We know, we sure do.
You're already on speed dial.
Thanks again for all your work.
Thanks for your support.
Take care. Next item, bikeways.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I've never done this before, so apologies if I don't do the normal protocol. I'll do my best. My name's Alan Ferry, and I'm the, I believe it's the vice chair of the Bikeways Committee. I didn't prepare a formal presentation for you. That's why nothing was submitted. I generally do things in an engagement type of, I like to do a Q&A. Rather than take everyone's time to talk about what we've done over the last year, which frankly was kind of boring. It's not super exciting. I'll answer questions if they arise, but I'd like to really focus forward on what we'd like to do over the next year, if that's okay with you guys. Does anyone feel otherwise?
No, that's fine, and just officially, if you could give us a basic report for over the past year. just
Sure,
So that we have it
sure.
on the record.
So over the past year, I'd say like the high-level accomplishments of the Bikeways Committee. Frankly, one of the biggest accomplishments was getting additional committee members. So we're a volunteer committee. We don't have a budget. We're not spending any town money. We're doing our best to just focus on the mission of the committee, which I'm going to talk about. Hopefully, we can expand the scope of the committee going forward. But as it pertains to the past year, it's been focused on cycling, bicycling, primarily on the rail trails, pretty much more around safety. We added committee members because we were short on committee members. We had an effort to communicate the new vulnerable user law, which requires 4-foot passing, and there was signage, and we were active in getting signage for the town. We're generally focused on identifying and resolving safety issues along the rail trail, and then to a certain extent, some advocacy, some communication. But again, it's all been, until, to date, focused on bicycling.
Great. And I know that this board assisted with getting, that communication in the tax bills.
Yes, and we're very grateful for that. That was.
Any questions from board members?
No, happy to hear about, what's forthcoming in 2025, so.
Thank you, appreciate it. So one of the topics that we've been discussing going forward, which is we've been discussing in the past, so it's relevant, is which I've harped on here a little bit. The Bikeways Committee is focused on bikes. And I would imagine there are probably more people in this room that have walked or run on the rail trails than have ridden bikes. And I don't think it's any big surprise that there might be some animosity here on Cape Cod between cyclists and literally everybody else.
Don't hold back.
Yeah. So, I moved here in 2020 from Boston, from downtown Boston, where I was involved with a lot of cycling initiatives and advocacy. And to be frank, I was kind of shocked at, my wife and I specifically chose the property here in Harwich and other properties that we looked at when we were moving down here because of the rail trail. And I'm not sure if people are aware of it, but there's a lot of people that vacation on Cape Cod specifically because of the rail trail. There are people that have purchased homes here because of the rail trails. Here in Harwich, we're lucky. We actually have 8 miles of rail trails between the Cape Cod Rail Trail and the Old Colony Rail Trail. It is truly it's a gem of our town, but I think it's an unpolished gem. And I'd like to help the town change that and really leverage the value of the rail trail and perhaps, expand the scope of this committee. So we would like to propose that the Harwich Bikeways Committee be changed to the Harwich Bikeways and Pedestrian Committee, which is...
If I may, and I don't want to cut him off, but this really isn't the forum for that.
Okay.
And there is a lengthy agenda that people are waiting on topics
Right.
for. Really what you need to do is, especially if you voted, is work through your liaison, which is Pete Perkarski.
Yep.
And then through the chair and get on the agenda as a standalone topic.
Okay.
With a request for a change of scope.
Sure.
And we welcome that.
Okay.
We've been changing a lot of committees' scopes, and we would love to hear from the committee, but I really think there's an awful lot on the agenda tonight to go through
Yeah, well, actually, I
What
was
they-
gonna say that
what they
we
want.
shouldn't talk about that part yet anyway, because this is just a report on really this past year.
All right, well,
John?
In all deference, before they leave, though, I'd like you to at least spend time in the future pondering how you could network with the Traffic Safety Committee, because one of the vexing continuing problems is the crossings with the trails across the streets, and it's like a Mexican standoff. Bicyclists don't get off and walk them, and car drivers don't often slow down. Not that the signals always work well either.
well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because the signals is a
We
big
can't
issue.
fix it tonight. All I'm just saying is that's
Yeah.
something I would really encourage you to talk with them about.
Well, that's relevant to what has happened over the past year, and if I may, I'd like to discuss that particular topic, because in 2024, we expected that there was going to be a signal at Oak Street. This had been approved by the Community Preservation Act funds. It was a $13,000 line item in the budget. And in late 2023, the DPW here in Harwich determined that there was going to be a project that was going to improve the Old Colony Rail Trail, and requested that those funds be pulled back and not allocated for that crossing. Now, this is the crossing that's closest to Monomoy High School, and it's also one of two major crossings that we have no lights whatsoever at. The other one being 124, Pleasant Lake.
Yeah,
So-
I think that, and I'm trying to recall.
From here, I agree with Michael. We're not going to resolve it
We're not
tonight.
going to resolve it tonight, but I also think that Link had provided some background on those improvements and the money when it was coming, so.
Right.
I hear you, but I'm just going to go to other board members because we do need to move along.
Okay, but those funds are not going to come in, that project doesn't start until late 2027. And here in Harwich, we've demonstrated over the last 4 years that we're responsive to things once they hit us in the face. For example, a few weeks ago, and a woman in her 80s tripped on some of the root heaves on the section of rail trail between Pleasant Lake and Oak Street. She ended up in the hospital with stitches, broken hand. She was really badly injured, and based on that, we were finally able to get permission to, the DPW finally got one of those stump grinders to shave down those stumps. And they did a fantastic job, and we've been trying to get that done for a couple of years. It's just unfortunate that it took a tragedy. Now, I'd like to point out that if somebody is run over on Pleasant Lake because they didn't come to a complete stop, whether it's a child or an adult, whether it's their fault or not, if somebody dies at that intersection, it's on our hands that we had an opportunity to put a crosswalk signal there, and we chose to put that $13,000 back into a fund where it's sitting, not being used, so that we can wait for the state to pay for it in 2027. And that I don't agree with as a parent of 3 children in this town and a member of the Bikeways Committee.
Thank you. Jeff?
Alan, thank you for being here, and my 2 little guys and I ride the bike trail quite a bit. I know exactly what you're talking about. Seems like you have a good vision for the future, and this board member feels real thankful that you're part of this committee, and that this committee is going to take a real good hard look at what I think as well is a true community asset to Harwich. So I look forward to seeing what you all bring to an agenda at some point, and again, working through Pete, I think would be the most effective way to do that.
No, now I would offer my thanks. Thanks for
You're
what
welcome.
you do on the committee and being there. Thank you.
Thank you. On to our annual town meeting topic. Joe, do you have any?
Just one update, Madam Chair, you should have in your packet, the so-called assessors article. So council has reviewed everything. It is to form, it's acceptable. Council also made some edits and suggestions on the program itself that we've sent to our Director of Assessing. But Article 28, so-called, accept Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5O. Again, that's not 0, that's 5O. Is proper, has been validated, and is in front of you. if you'd like to take any actions or ask any questions.
Go to board members, feedback on this, Don? Nothing?
I have nothing written.
Pete?
No, I was looking to have it approved for inclusion.
If that's the will of the board, it can be placed if you want. You can do them en masse at a later meeting.
Does the board- go ahead.
Sorry, the follow-up was to make sure that what was presented is valid. It is, we have it ready to go.
Thank you. Anything else? Sorry.
I'm okay with inclusion if
Yep.
the board wants to, or if they'd rather do it as a group later on.
Jeff?
I concur with Pete.
Michael?
Board's will.
Inclusion.
Conclude.
Get a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anything else? For anybody, any other one?
Madam Chair, I just would like to bring that school one back sooner than later, so we can start public
Yeah.
conversations about that.
And I also sent an email about the field part, maintenance and.
I'm sorry, just clarification, maintenance of,
The other article that was from last year, well, that increased in cost.
the Chatham siding.
Chatham siding and Trent.
And on that note, I went on Thursday last week for a tour with Scott Carpenter and Rick and the facilities manager, and I got firsthand look at exactly what they're speaking of, so.
Great, and I know they're putting together a few.
Yes.
Yeah, so, anyway, I know they're working on it, but I think we need to make sure we have all the information on that as
100%.
well, so. Okay, so nothing else on any articles, we can move on. On to new business. And item A.
We have our golf director here to present on the annual presentation of recommended rates and fees. This would be for the 2025 season.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Town Administrator. You see in your packet that the rates and fee recommendation for the 2025 season at Cranberry Valley. As an overview, the recommendation represents consistency in what's worked in the past, and it also represents a prioritizing of Harwich residents in the rates. If you want me to go into anything specific, please let me know, or I'll answer any questions.
I'll go to board members to see if they have any questions. Thank you, Roman.
Thank you.
Any board members have any specific questions? Michael?
No questions, I'm prepared to make a motion if nobody else does.
Does anyone else have any questions on the report? Hearing none? Oh,
I just have
sorry,
one
go
question. Just, Roman, if you could, the golf carts are leased,
Yes, they are.
and that's a revenue share?
It is a revenue 60/40 benefiting the town.
And when does that lease term expire?
2025 will be the final year of a 5-year lease.
And so moving forward, after that lease, the intention would be to release with the same company, I would assume.
It could be, yeah.
Shop it.
It's probably my recommendation at this point, a little premature maybe, to do a 1-year extension on that lease.
Sure.
Because we didn't get those carts until the second year of the lease, actually, because, during the pandemic, there was a shortage on all supplies. So we actually had a temporary fleet the first year, and the cart batteries are warranted for 5 years. So a 1-year extension would make sense.
That's exactly where I was going with it. The batteries and the term of the lease should coincide with their useful life.
That's where I stand right now, is I'll probably recommend a 1-year extension.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could. So on that then, from a procurement standpoint, we just have to validate the contract that was signed. Typically, we do 3-year agreements. With a 5-year, we'd have to make sure the language and the ability are there, but the town's always going to look for the best terms for the town. So we can argue if the language isn't there, that the temporary fleet was not really what we leased, so we had 2 different leases. So we'll have to evaluate it. It may require a vote of the board, but we'll see what we can do under 30B.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe.
Michael?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the changes to the Cranberry Valley Golf Course rates and fees as recommended by the golf director.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Discussion.
Discussion, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you and the committee have done a really good job. I need to preface it by saying that. But part of the discussion for me, as you were hearing before, is not just what this is, the fees are relative to what other towns are doing, but also what we're using the money for, which isn't anything that you have to do with. But I'm going to wind up voting against this just to make the point that I've been asking for 6 months now for the information about what goes into that special purpose fund, and I haven't gotten an answer.
Okay,
So-
I can point out, there is some information that was in the packet on that. If,
Yeah, I'm looking for a trajectory, though, for
Okay.
5 years
yeah,
that
so
shows
I
me
come prepared
how
with
it's been
that
used.
specific report, but, okay.
But again, you've done a really good job, and I want to make that point. It's not a reflection on anything that you folks have done.
No, we're going to get that information. So, motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
4-1. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, before the director goes, can you just announce for the public when those fees will go into effect?
They'll go into effect immediately in 2025. We'll begin selling memberships, annual passes, the first day of 2025. And we'll start selling green fees as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work.
And thanks to your whole staff.
Okay. Item B.
Madam Chair, move to approve the following 2025 auto annual licenses. Number 1, Wayne's Auto Service, 643 Main Street, Class 4 Auto Repair. Number 2, C&B Automotive, Inc., DBA Reflections Auto Restoration and Collision, 4 Evergreen Way, Class 4 Auto Repair. Number 3, Harwich Port Boatyard, 4 Harbor Road, Class 1 Agent and Sellers.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Move to approve the 2025 annual in-holder license renewal for Round Cove Resorts, DBA Wequassett Resort, 2173 Route 28.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I do know that we received an email from Wequassett about, sorry, I'm going back into the folders and emails, but is anyone here from Wequassett that wants to speak to the?
Madam Chairman, I am from Wequassett, but
You don't need to speak, but if you wanted to speak, okay. Okay. Any board members have any questions I should ask? Oh, did you?
Yeah, just a comment. You have the right to operate the way you want to operate, and if everything is capable of being approved, we vote to accept how you're operating. I will point out, though, that originally we were led to believe that there was going to be continuity from the old organization to this, and tonight you're here, but not the lead, I guess, manager.
But you have to come up to the podium and identify yourself to speak.
thank you. My name is Jenna Barker. I am Gary Thulander, his assistant, and he is our operating manager for Wequassett.
I just hope you understood the point I was making, though, because originally we were dealing with a group of people. They assured us that there was going to be continuity, and then things started changing. And to the extent that they are changing, I kind of like to have somebody in front of me that I can actually see that it pertains to. And later on, he's not going to be here. So
How may we remedy that for you?
I'll vote for it right now. I'm just
Okay.
saying that, ultimately, in the future, we all live in the same town, and we all are trying to serve the same population in a positive way.
Yeah, separate, right, there's a follow-up item under there.
That's a fourth.
No, I know, but she's here, and I just wanted to at
Thank
least
you.
mention that.
Thank you for the feedback.
Thank you. So we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0, Madam Chair?
5-0, yeah.
Madam Chair, vote to approve the following 2025 annual common victular license renewals. Number 1, BLM Restaurant Group, DBA The Lanyard Bar and Grill, 429 Route 28. And number 2, Subfleet Inc., DBA Subway, 1 Austin Road. And number 3, Round Cove Resort, I'm going to get that right one of these times, DBA Wequassett Resort, 2173 Route 28.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair, move to approve the following 2025 annual entertainment license renewals. BLM Restaurant Group, DBA The Lanyard Bar and Grill, 429 Route 29. Weekday, 4 p to 10 p, inside and outside, jukebox, radio, TV, live recorded music, amplification, dancing. Sunday, 4 p to 10 p, inside and outside, jukebox, radio, TV, live recorded music, amplification, and dancing.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just Just so the public understands this, there is a substantive difference, and we've said this before each year that this has happened. There's a substantive difference between who might be caused distress over sound emanating from a property, and we've been pretty hard on certain properties in Harwichport. The reason that this is different is because it is different. They don't really have any abutters that this would affect, so the public needs to understand we're taking these circumstances one by one.
Thank you, Don. And I would just note also that there were 11. We have the motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0, Madam Chair.
Yes, 5-0. And now on to item F.
This is a discussion on the change of manager for the Round Cove Resort.
And so, again, on that, the change of manager, do you have any comments other than what we've just talked about here? So,
Madam Chair.
yeah,
Move that we approve the change of manager application for Round Cove Resort Beverage LLC, DBA Waquasit, 2171 Route 28, new manager of record, Gary Zoolander.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, old business, we already.
Madam Chair, if I could just a procedural note, there's an additional used dealer Class 2 license that's coming around. The board approved it at your last meeting, it just needs to be signed.
Okay, thank you.
And this is
To
you.
item B, under old business.
This is you.
Madam Chair, if you'd like.
Yeah, or did you, well, I was gonna go to Joe unless,
Okay.
on item B.
This was a
Unless,
request.
yeah,
Board.
okay, so go ahead.
So I requested this, and it's related to the Pine Oaks proposed development on Queen Anne Road. At their informational hearing, public engagement forum, they announced that they do not control or own all the land. And I think it's important that their application expresses that they do. They've represented to this board that they do. And I think it's important that we send a letter from this board to Mass Housing to explain that they've openly admitted that they do not control or own all of the land. If any one of us wanted to build a garage on a property next to our house and we didn't quite own the land, imagine you wouldn't get very far. And this is being represented over and over again by the Pine Oaks development. And in a community forum where you weren't actually allowed to speak. You could write things on note cards and they'd pick and choose what they answered. This 40B process does not allow any of you, until it gets to the Board of Appeals level, to say anything about it. The applicant has said this is what we plan on doing. And now they're planning on building on 250 units with an additional 40 on land that they don't actually own yet. And I don't know how you in this state apply for an application for something on land that you don't own. So I think it's important that this board represents the town and the taxpayers and express our assessing records and the fact that they don't agree with their reports whatsoever.
Thank you,
So
Mike.
I would ask the board's support in sending that letter.
Don?
Respectfully from the opposition here, there is no planet on which I could contemplate living where our assessor's office could possibly know what was entered into as a purchase and sale until it was actually finished and filed with the Registry of Deeds. And I think it's premature to send any kind of a letter until we can assess. Ownership is different than having it under control with a P&S that's got contingencies in it. I don't know, and I'm not sure that anybody in this room can know, without having that conversation with them, whether they demonstrate through the existence of a purchase and sale, whether they have control even if they don't own the property, because that kind of document does not get filed in the assessor's office. So I won't be voting for that.
Madam Chair, if I could just for a correction on this. I can agree with Don that assessing records, especially in the town of Harwich, given the amount of owners unknown, that they couldn't know that. But they said to the public in that meeting that they don't own it and they don't control it. So by their own admission is what I'm asking for. Our assessing department has done a fair amount of research on that front lot. which would be the entrance. And there is absolutely no clear title to that whatsoever, and they're working on it. So again, you can't apply for anything in this town as a homeowner without ownership of land. And they've openly said they do not own it.
Thank you. Mike, Don?
Yeah, but in all due respect, that is not true. The second part of that's not true. Almost all the time, people go in front of the planning board with a subdivision plan where they haven't actually passed paper yet because the actual sale is contingent upon whether or not they're going to get an approval. So that hasn't happened, and we haven't called them in here to have this discussion about whether they still maintain they have it under control or they don't. And I think it's premature for us to send a letter. I personally won't vote for it because I would be embarrassed if it turns out that we're not right.
Thank you, Don. Pete?
Well, I could start by saying I'd want to see the letter before I gave a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And perhaps in the meantime, if depending on how the rest of the board feels, we could ask the folks to provide us with documentation that states that they have valid P&S documents for said parcels.
I would be comfortable with that. I'd like to ask the question first.
I'm okay with drafting the letter at the same time,
right.
however. I would just like to see the letter before
Because
I...
we could send a letter if they come back saying, we in fact confirm we don't have any control. But we can ask the question while drafting. Is that the preference? Preference of the board? Sorry, Joe.
If you're asking the preference of the board, I'm not going to interfere with that.
That's all, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just looking for...
So, as I understand the request from the member, the town has already submitted a response to the project eligibility letter, and within that, we have identified that we do not believe that they have control over the parcels. As I understand the request, it's an effort to amplify that part of the letter, perhaps. That's how I understood it.
But that letter, just for my clarification, that letter went to the state. We could also ask that question to the parties, or do you feel that that's the better avenue?
So maybe through you to the requestor. I thought I understood the requestor's request for this topic is for the town to build upon the already submitted letter and to amplify that topic.
And I believe you're
Thank you. Through the chair of the town administrator. We have already, as a board, unanimously voted what we sent to Mass Housing, so it's a little surprising to me that we won't do it now, but we did it a few weeks ago. So amplification definitely makes sense. If it's the pleasure of the board to have a meeting, invite the applicant in again to tell us they're working on it. I would ask that we invite the assessing department, so the assessing department can present the work that they've done on this to show that it's not clear title. Hasn't been clear title ever, and it's still not clear title. So if we're gonna have another meeting on this, before we amplify what we've already voted, I can go along with that. But I would ask that we invite the assessing department to see if any change or any engineered plans or stamped plans or anything has been presented to the assessing department to show ownership and taxes being paid on that like the rest of us do.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have had some conversations with folks, and again, I don't understand how the assessing department would be relevant to this insofar as the applicant has done a whole lot of title work because there were numerous landholders that they've aggregated into one project. And unless and until there's a consummation of all these sales and they get filed at the Registry of Deeds, you're not going to know through the assessor's office what you're asking them for. It's just not going to happen.
Madam Chair, just as a follow-up, and I'm not going to go back and forth anymore on this, they have represented that to us already, that they have the purchase and sales, that they have ownership, and that they control the properties. And now they tell the public in their public engagement forum, if that's what it was, that they don't control and they don't own it.
And just for clarification, I believe Dawn is saying that no one would know that till it gets recorded on the registry, but, Richard?
Madam Chair, Richard Wastek, speaking as Chair of the Board of Assessors, will be before you in early January as a follow-up to Article 39 on owners unknown and miscellaneous parcels. At that time, we'll be recommending to the board 4 steps that will alleviate a lot of these problems. One of those, which goes back to a recommendation that we made in 2010 to the then Board of Selectmen, was stating that no parcel of land will be assigned a map and parcel number to identify that parcel unless it has a deed and a corresponding engineered plan that shows the dimensions of that deed. We'll be coming back in January 6th to discuss with you and put a set of recommendations to the Select Board. But that is one caveat that is so important, will help us clear up all the miscellaneous and owners unknown parcels. So for clarification, that is how a parcel of land gets on the assessing records.
Thank you, Richard. So,
Just if I could, to Michael's point, and I don't disagree, Michael, we absolutely included that in our letter. 2 things. One, I would just like to see the letter that we're going to craft to send the next time, because I took it to be, my second point, you wanted that letter to include the fact that they stated in public that they own the property. So I'd just like to see the letter. And if those folks want to come before us and show us the P&S agreements, then again, I'm fine with that as well.
Would it be okay for the town administrator to work on a letter in the meantime, so we have something to look at and not bring it back a third time? Thank you.
We'll have both of those, yep. Okay, so now on to item C. And I'll go to you,
Madam
Joe.
Chair.
Thank you.
Just finish my note if I could. So with regard to a discussion on the improvement of Round Cove Road, the town was made aware that there exists a agreement of purchase and sale between 2 private parties in the town. However, the town's aware of it because in the purchase and sale agreement, there is a rider, and in the rider, there is a stipulation that essentially says that the Select Board is being asked to improve and thereafter maintain Round Cove Road from the east end of the 17-acre lot / premises to Hawks Nest Road by widening the same and providing an aggregate / T-base surface to not less than the minimum standard required for town roads in Harwich, and to repair and maintain that section of Hawks Nest Road running from Raptor Road to Round Cove Road. If the board elects not to make said improvements, then the seller at its option may terminate the purchase and sale with the deposit refunded to the buyer.
By a date certain. There's a date in there.
A date on the P&S, yeah.
A date for us to be in agreement.
I don't think it was today's date.
Tomorrow.
Sorry, tomorrow's date, 12/17.
So the statement I read was just verified by your counsel so that the town is operating from that knowledge. We understand that there was a date in the rider, but we are not talking about the rider, we're not talking about the purchase and sale, because that's between the 2 private parties, and we do not want to release that if we don't have to.
Thank you.
So again, what I've read is what was vetted by council, and yes, there is a expectation in the rider that there would be a decision made by this board by December 17th, 2024.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
And then I'll go to Liz. Wherever you're comfortable, here or where you...
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Dubuque. I'm at 74 Hawks Nest Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to ask the board to consider a request that, if granted, would solidify the conservation of a substantial tract of forested land in the Six Ponds District. The board has been provided with a signed purchase and sale document that outlines plans to entrust 17 acres of land abutting Hawks Nest State Park to the Native Land Conservancy through the support and facilitation of the Harwich Conservation Trust. This land is privately owned by my family. We've decided to sell the land, and we've had a few offers from developers. Since we live out there and plan to stay there, we would really like it to go into conservation instead. I approached Harwich Conservation Trust, and I was able to foster interest, which we would like to pursue, even though their offer is substantially lower than other offers. Besides being placed in conservation, one contingency we have is that a half-mile of town road be maintained by the town. The vast majority of people who use these roads come here to walk, hike, walk their dogs, swim at the pond, or just drive through the area. Yet we also use the roads as we live there, but we are just a few of the many that come out here for other reasons. So the road improvements would not just benefit us. Further, should we sell to a developer, they would surely widen and improve the road as they can't be denied access. I don't feel we're asking much. These are both town roads. There are people who have been living on the section, who will be living on the section of Hawks Nest Road, who are being denied maintenance. This is not fair that these homeowners be required to maintain a road that is open and used by the public at their own expense. It's not a cul-de-sac or a dead-end street. In addition, that is contrary to how others that now live on the road have previously been treated. Round Cove Road is also a town road, and it should be maintained. That is now being denied. As I said previously, the sections of these two roads only total about a half-mile combined. While we recognize that previous efforts to negotiate these road changes and maintenance resulted in disagreements and controversy, it's our hope that all stakeholders will be willing to consider this through a fresh lens. I think we can all agree that if a tract of this size was to be developed, the character and the access roads in question would be drastically altered than what is imagined in this proposal. If an opportunity exists to prioritize land preservation, it is my hope that we can put aside less meaningful differences and work together. While we clearly maintain the position that road improvements and maintenance are necessary, we understand and share concerns about protecting rural and woodland characters of the area as well as managing traffic patterns. That is why we're willing to allow the Highway Department to use their judgment and improve the roads to meet only town minimum standards, so that the roads can be maintained, including snow plowing, with the least effort and resources. Round Cove Road is paved to 12 feet. This section of Round Cove Road that we're talking about would just be gravel. And the width is fine. You know, it'd be senseless for it to go 12 feet and widen out to 20. So, you know, if it just went 12 feet through, that would be great. There needs to be a few areas for people to pass and for the sides of the hill to be shaved a bit. Because if you're walking your dog along, there's a section there, it's like, happens to me every single time. I walk along there and a car comes along and the sides of the hill, the road are this high and the car width, you know, you can't just step aside. You got to run back or climb up onto this hillside. There needs to be, so we're asking for minimal standards as the Highway Department needs to maintain and plow. By approving these proposed improvements, the town would ensure that Round Cove Road and Hawks Nest Road are safe, accessible, and maintained for all users. The Land Conservancy is a local and dedicated trust. They are well positioned to protect and preserve the land in question, which I believe is the largest tract of land currently under consideration on Cape Cod. We humbly ask the board to consider supporting town improvement and maintenance of these road sections. If we can successfully satisfy the sales contingency by prioritizing broader conservation goals, we can help to ensure that the area remains preserved for future generations. Wait, I do have one question for you. If you decide to deny this request, does this mean that you expect private citizens to maintain town roads, specifically these sections of Hawks Nest and Round Cove? I mean, that Wally wasn't clear at the last meeting, so I'm hoping I can get clarification on that. But, so that's it. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I welcome questions and will answer to the best of my ability.
Thank you, and I'm going to go to the public here in the meeting, and then I will go to anybody online as well if there are follow-up questions. But I would just ask if you hear somebody get up and ask your question, that unless you have something in addition to ask, that we keep it to that, so. Hello?
Good evening. Tom Telesmanic, Harrimar Heath, East Harwich. My back property line is on Hawks Nest Road. We all have a visual on what this north side of Hawks Nest Road that wants to be developed looks like, a picture of it, and of course Round Cove that comes in. It was undisturbed for many years until the developer decided to widen it a little more a few years back, which created water ruts and some potholes. This is the area they want. Not paved, I'm sorry, T-based, graded T-based. So I guess everybody knows the picture here with the back road. I'm here to tell you, my property line is at the back side of Hawks Nest Road, north side by Queen Anne, south side by Queen Anne. Traffic, okay, if this road is developed, it's going to be a bypass. GPS already tells people to come down through there. I have, and I can tell you, and I'll be very brief, hunters in the morning, half a dozen. They come and go quietly. Now you have 15 or so cars throughout the day that have dogs. They drive down, walk their dogs. 10 minutes later, the dogs have been walked and they come back. You have people walking, neighborhood people. We have people from 137 that come down through Round Cove that walk. I think it's a policeman's wife that jogs daily. Okay, bicyclists, a lot of foot traffic. A few people drive rather rapidly, over the excessive of 20 or 30 miles an hour on a dirt road. And just to clarify, I don't think the town owns that road. I may be wrong, but it was a county path. All right, when I built there 33 years ago, and I guess it's now a town.
It's
a road governed by the Barnstable County.
Depending on which road you're talking about.
Is it a county type road now and not a back road, dirt road? All right, a cart's path on the maps in town.
Yeah.
And it's a county road now, I believe.
There's two different roads and there are two different designations.
Oh, okay. Well, good. Well, listen, all I want to do is say, tell everybody here that the speed, more cars. I didn't even talk about summertime. There's daily cars going up and down with surfboards or paddle boards or whatever to the pond. Many of these people that are here tonight to talk about this pick up bottles, cans, and so forth on the road that are tossed out by these mostly summer tourists. So, point across, I guess, thank you very much for listening. And if I may, on your side, I thank you, Dawn, for announcing Jack Pina. Close to my heart, 35 years in the entertainment business. So I maybe ask all of you to just say a little prayer for the Cape Verdean community, to have respect for them this weekend. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, Pam Latimer, 64 Round Cove Road, Select Board members and our community. I would like to say that 11 neighboring households support the general feeling that I now present. Some of them may be in attendance, but I have permission to give their names if you request later on. How many of you here tonight are attending because you are against widening of the end of Round Cove Road? Are you against it because you like the character of a narrow, winding dirt road? Do you like the trees that hang over from both sides? Do you like to look into the woods on both sides and see only woodlands? Well, if you do, that is why I am here also. So imagine now that you have won this battle to maintain and sustain a narrow, overgrown, bumpy dirt road. However, in my opinion, you have lost the war. Why, you say? Because let's walk down the road now. On one side, there are trees where the state has purchased land that you enjoy looking into open woodland. And on the other side, in the 17 acres that could be woodland, there are now houses, and the trails that you have enjoyed are blocked by private land. It's landscaped, and the driveways could be paved. They have cleared the land to their preference, and you have no control over what they do. You have control now to smooth and slightly widen the road. It could be the same width as the paved portion, smooth and the same as Round Cove Road is now in the paved section. I ask you to see the choice now. Choose to slightly change the road and leave the 17 acres of open woodlands that we can enjoy and your children can enjoy forever. Think now while you still have time to defend what you think you really enjoy about this East Harwich area. Less houses will protect the Six Ponds Water District also. Also, if you build, they will come, not because of the road size, but because there will be houses there. So thank you for listening, and I hope the townspeople and neighbors and the select board can hear my words.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, Select Board. Patrick Otten, East Harwich. I wonder if everybody understands that the area we're talking about is the 1,200 acres of DCPC land that was first proposed and defined by the Cape Cod Commission in 2000. What did the Cape Cod Commission have to say about this area?
Madam Chair, could I just get clarification from the speaker? I thought we were talking about 17 acres.
I'm talking about the DCPC in which that 17 acres is included.
So your presentation now is on the entire DCPC, not tonight's agenda item.
Would you please listen to me and I'll conclude?
I'm just asking for clarification.
I think, let's just hear the conversation that he's sharing, and so we can go from there to figure out if there's any reason to curtail it.
The Cape Cod Commission gave reasons for designation, the problems of uncontrolled or inappropriate development in the area. They said the presence of significant natural, coastal, scientific, cultural, archaeological, historic, economic, and recreational resources and values of regional, statewide, and national significance. The presence of substantial areas of sensitive ecology and conditions which render the area unsuitable for development. I am very pleased that Liz has said today that she's not asking to pave the road. She's not asking for it to be widened. She said maintain the width, maintain its travelability. So fill in the potholes, take out the lumps. T-base is another dangerous substance to be adding in a natural area. I would advocate for gravel only. So please, let's support this so that, in fact, the DCPC criteria is followed and development is not encouraged in that area.
Thank you.
So I really support the effort of having 17 acres for preservation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Select Board. Gerald Beltis, East Harwich. My concerns are the cost of the town caring for the roads that the developer originally said in his license that he was going to do. The residents down there are upset that the roads aren't being maintained. They're coming after the town when they should be going after the developer, not the town. The cost of repairing the roads, Seth Whitefield, Huxnet, whatever it is, I don't know what the cost is to put the final T-base down to their end of their license. but it seems to me there's some fuzzy math going on here, that they're going to gain money from the sale of the property, and the town doesn't have to put, they don't have to put anything into the road, and now they're forcing the town to put it in to the properties that they want to fix on Hawks Nest Road, and then adding Round Cove Road to that. Somewhere down the line, there's fuzzy math that they're gaining and the town is paying, and we're getting nothing but the end. I'd like to see that this is sold to the protection of the conservation area, but having the rider that the town has to pay is not correct.
Thank you.
Hi, I am a resident of 70 Round Cove Road. We bought the property.
Excuse me, sorry. There can't be any conversation. Others are speaking, so please hold any conversation while others speak. Thank you.
Need a name.
Yeah, I interrupted him. Could you state your name?
Yeah, Abid Raouf. I live in 70 Round Cove Road. We bought the house about 30 years ago. We attracted to the area because of the scene, the beauty of the area, the quietness. I remember my grandchild from Michigan came to visit us about 10 years ago and said to me, "Grandpa, do you have neighbors here?" Because a quiet area. I said, "Yes." And he began to go in the area, ride his bike without any problem. And we enjoy the area all the times. The question is today, it's the same time, the question today came about 8 years ago to this board. And I remember the chairman of the board said, this area is a jewel of Harwich. That is an important point, really, and I hope you will do the same thing. Don't change the nature of the area. Don't do anything except accept the 17 acre of land to be acquired by the Conservation Trust. So please maintain the beauty of the area. I see over the last 10 years, people, day and after day, they come from different parts of Harwich to walk, to enjoy the scenery. They run, they walk. I remember last year, I belonged to a group of walkers from Harwich and Chatham. I invite them to come to the area to take a walk in the area. There were 60 people. They never been in the area. And they enjoyed the walk, and they said, all this time we don't know this area. Please don't change it. Please maintain the nature of this area. So please don't commercialize the area. Make it residential area, quiet area where people enjoy it. People from different parts of the Cape, they come and enjoy the area. So I plead with you to maintain the nature of this area and not to do anything to destroy this nature. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did someone pipe in bird noises for this?
That sounds like a hearing aid.
Hearing aid. Oh, I see, okay.
It's a hearing aid.
Hearing something.
Yeah, hearing aid. It's feedback.
Somebody's hearing aid.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
We were.
yeah.
Good evening. My name's Nadine Anzaldi. I live at Harwich Heath. It parallels Hawks Nest in Harwich. And I'm here to submit my opposition to the proposal that the town widen and T-stone these two roads in exchange for selling a 17-acre parcel to a conservation trust as opposed to a developer. To me, it feels deliberately coercive tactic to enlist conservation-minded people to support this maneuver while attempting to leverage the town to acquiesce to these roads improvements. I could speculate all day as to what the motivations are, but the way that I see it, why I'm against it, is because I think that to grant this request would create faster-moving two-way traffic from cars exiting Route 6, motorists seeking to bypass traffic lights at the junction of 137 and 39, or the 39 Rotary, would cut through Round Cove to Hawks Nest to Popple Grove and then on to Queen Anne. In the summertime, it would be nuts, and the quiet country nature of the neighborhood would be irretrievably changed. There's no going back. The other thing, too, that's not mentioned, but I'll just mention it quickly, is road improvements, in quotes, would promote an increased amount of traffic to Hawks Nest Pond, which is already heavily traversed in the summer with visitors driving their vehicles, and to restricted areas, and further eroding the land surrounding the pond. Many leave behind trash and set campfires, even though signs prohibit it. And Nickerson Park does not have personnel at Hawks Nest Pond to protect the area from violators. All of this would worsen with heavier access, more traffic coming in that direction. And I don't want my tax dollars to subsidize a builder's schemes. I just don't think it's right. It's being framed like if the town doesn't agree to the road changes, then the town is to blame for the fact that the land isn't going to be sold to a trust. It's convoluted. You want to sell to a trust? You want to give to a trust? If conservation is your big thing, then do it. But don't leverage the town. It's wrong. And the town is us. We're the taxpayers. I was here in 2019 in May, and it's my understanding that after the board turned down these similar requests for the road changes, the town was sued by the petitioner to the Superior Court and was denied his suit. And he also went on to sue again, and for people that don't know, Mass Supreme Court, and 3 judges turned him down. So he's back. And sometime at some point, he's going to have to learn to take no for an answer. This is not right. Thank you.
Thank you.
How are you? My name's Todd Perry. I live on 49 Round Cove Road, right at the end of the asphalt part of the road where it turns to dirt. So I'm very aware of the amount of traffic that's on that road. And I've been there since probably anybody else here. I bought the land when I was 18 years old, and I brought the telephone poles down the dirt road to get access there. So I've seen a lot of changes. East Harwich at that point was a 4-way stop sign. You know, it's changed a lot, and we've seen a lot of traffic. And I get the traffic part of it, but the other thing that's changed is the development. And we really need to take as much aggressive action to try to procure as much conservation land as we can out there. Otherwise, it's just going to be developed with tracts of houses. And I think any chance we get to be able to, work with developers to, get this property, even if it costs us a little bit of money, I think is very beneficial to the rest of the town. And the traffic can be addressed in different ways. You could put speed bumps in if you really wanted to. I think the safety issue for the pond, having clear access for fire trucks to get down there, I think is very important. So, I understand there are some issues, but I really think that this is a very important project, to really look at and use as a tool for the future for other developers who are trying to get rid of land, who want to, give back, but still need to get their investment back out of this property. So, if we can work with them and try to get as much of cooperation as we can with developers. I think it's important. They're not going to just give up their land. They're going to want something. And, I don't think Mr. Freitas is asking very much for what he's giving up. 17 acres is a lot of land, and it's very important in that area. So I'm 100% for it.
Thank you.
Hi, Ian Hoffman-Terry, Round Cove Road. I've lived on Round Cove for about 10 years. I have a little 5-year-old. We're on that road all the time. We're on the paved part. We're on the dirt part. We're acutely aware of the traffic, how fast it's going, how much there is. And, that's a concern, But that's going to be a concern no matter what. The point I think I want to make is sort of certainty versus uncertainty. We could hope that, if the board turns down this proposal, the road won't be widened. It'll stay the same. It'll have the rural character that a lot of us love, but it's not necessarily going to be forever. The board could change. We could get different votes 3-4 years down the road, and they could vote to improve it. Right? That could happen anyways. The issue here is you could get a lot of that land that goes right by that unimproved section that we all love, or many of us love, conserved forever. It seems to me that that is a good deal. I love that road. It's great. It's wonderful. But if there's houses off in the woods, as a previous speaker said, it's going to change it completely. You're not going to have that feeling of a nice rural road. Take the opportunity. You can put that in conservation forever. That section of road might change. I'm in a position where I'm on the paved section of Round Cove. If that area gets developed, that'll affect me. If there's more traffic, it'll affect me. But I think the better choice is protect that land, protect it in perpetuity. And you've done something really, really special. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, James Rosato. I'm a resident of Orleans. I've got a spot out on Hawks Nest Road that I hope to live on someday. There's a lot of history here. There's a lot of emotions and personalities involved, and I think I'd like to try to speak to some of that and cut through some of the mud. And I believe there's a middle ground here that works for everybody. I think ultimately if this deal falls through, traffic in the area, development in the area is going to skyrocket. I'm acutely aware of the land situation out there because I searched for land for a long time, grew up here, my family's been here for a long time. I'm pretty intimately aware of most of the land on the Lower Cape. This piece of land, and I have, satellite images if anyone wants to see it. I have parcel maps if anyone wants to see it. This is the last piece of frontage on the largest tract of developable land on the Cape. The area of woods between the dirt roads out to Stop and Shop is all privately owned. It could all get developed, all of it, hundreds of acres. So this is the last piece of frontage that cuts that off in a significant way. It's also ecologically significant as it connects the wetlands of the state park to the upland, out to Pleasant Bay, out to that whole sort of wildlife corridor. So ecologically, it's very significant, which is, I'm sure, why Harwich Conservation Trust is interested in it. As far as the road goes, development out there is inevitable if this falls through. We've been given that. As much as the deal presented to us doesn't feel great, I feel like a lot of people feel like they're backed against a wall here. We have two options, and one option is really bad. The development is going to, what we're worried about with option one is going to happen if we go with option two, okay? So I think we need to band together to authorize the town to do what they need to do to satisfy the purchase and sale agreement. I think there are ways to mitigate traffic issues out there, and I think this is a great opportunity to bring those to light because I think a lot of people are concerned about them. I've definitely been on the road and had to jump into the bushes as someone's coming by. I think there are certain ways to control speed out there and make it safer and slower. And maybe that is something to bring to the table as we sort of transfer responsibility of these roads to the DPW. Yeah, I mean, my point to sort of address these fears is that I think if we let this fall through, it's only going to get worse. And this is our chance to kind of lay out what actually works for everybody. And I think after talking to lots of people in the area, talking to Bob and Liz, understanding what everyone's asking for, the subject of widening, the subject of T-base, this is all, there's a lot of history. I think the ask several years ago was to blow out the road to 20, 30 feet, make it look like Hawks Nest Road, and I think this is much different than that. You're asking for the town to maintain it, to fill in the potholes and keep the width. I went out there today to measure the road. The narrowest portion is 11 feet, so one more foot to meet the requirement. It's actually not going to get any wider. I think the single track nature of the road automatically cuts down on speed. You have to be aware of what's oncoming. You know, it's not a very significant change to the road. And actually, I think filling in some of those potholes will take some of the traffic out from the Queen Anne side, and people will access the park through Round Cove again, sort of split it up. I access through Spruce Road, so I don't go by anybody's house. I like coming in the extra bumpy road. In a bubble, I prefer an unmaintained dirt road. Personally, I love a rutted out road. I think you should let them all go to crap. I think you should mill all the roads, and we should just go back to dirt roads. Back when Freeman's was a dirt road. That's kind of like what I would like. But I think the situation at hand, our best option is to kind of authorize the town to do this. And so this kind of, I hate to ramble on, but I think the missing piece of this puzzle is finding language that everyone's happy with for the maintenance of the road. We don't raise more traffic concerns, safety concerns. The town has a feasible way to maintain the road, and it appeases the purchase and sale agreement so that this can go through. So I think there is a middle ground. I think agreeing on language that these guys can take away, satisfied, and that the sale can go through, because I know time is of the essence. You know, whether it's the materials or the width or the way that it's done, I hope that we can work swiftly and sort of come to a conclusion on something that's feasible for everybody. So I hope that these parties are open-minded to kind of get to the bottom of that. I think that's going to be the big hang-up, is just coming to an agreement on language. I think that, you know, and I think given the green light to DPW, Clint Cooper, I think as soon as he has the green light to maintain it, he's going to keep it in a good, safe condition. He's going to maintain the character of the road. Whether it's, I think dense grade is a better option than T-base. It does the same thing, but it's more permeable and blends in with the natural material a little better. But you know, whatever has to be done, I think is worth doing. Yeah, I think that's it. I think our best chance to preserve the character of the neighborhood, of the area, and the sensitive parklands, this last little piece of undeveloped land, which is, when I found that out, it kind of blew my mind that there was all this unprotected land open. All those trails are all just through people's private woodlots. It's all very vulnerable land. I think this is like our opportunity to make this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Howe, Harmar Heath, East Harwich. Fantastic that the land can be saved. Why then, without any generosity, is it tied to widening the road? Why not save the land? Why not lift that requirement? And my other concern is that requirement can become a slippery slope. What road next? How much more money from the town of Harwich for somebody else's road that is easily a cartway, that people prefer the way it is because it's rural? it's what the dog walkers might want because there's less traffic, perhaps because more roadway actually impacts the creatures that cross it and actually work against conservation? What about the policing for what you're hearing here, that the GPS routes come through? My yard is close enough, so I hear an immense amount of traffic compared to what I used to hear a couple years ago. What about the fire department? We've had fire in that woods. The more traffic you get like that, it doesn't even take somebody lighting a fire. All it takes is a spark. And look at what we have had this summer. The last time there was a fire, we had hoses running down the street from our fire hydrants on the town streets, filling trucks, going in there. It took, with the undersurface fires, it took several weeks. That's scary. That also affects everybody's insurance who's backed up to Hawk's Nest, especially if climate change means it's going to get drier and drier. So my argument here is, fine, Harwich Conservation, whatever management of that land that keeps it from development, wonderful. Where is the grace to walk away from a road surface? Where is the grace to say, we're not going to impose that on the taxpayers of Harwich, who already, there are many roads in this town where people travel every day that need help. Look what's going to happen with Soaring, how much road work is going to be done. Where is the grace to step back from that small request and simply say, let's put that land under conservation? My request is go forward, lift that request. I'm fine with that. I'm overjoyed with that. But let's not create a slippery slope where every time somebody comes and wants a private or just underdeveloped roadway improved, that suddenly the town has an example that they can go back to where town funds and taxpayers' funds can be redirected. So that's my proposition on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Todd Telesmanic, 3 Harmar Heath, East Harwich, and 55 Gilbert Lane in Harwichport. 35 years we've had the house in East Harwich. Back when I grew up, like my father said in the beginning, it was a cart path, a simple cart path to go to Hawk's Nest and out to Spruce Road. A few years back, the road had to be widened to allow the excess amount of construction vehicles going down to build the new houses. So behind, from Queen Anne Road down to where it's Seth Whitefield to Hawk's Nest is already covered in T-base. The town comes through every couple weeks and grades that section of the road behind my parents' house all the way down to, I believe, where the makeshift parking area is for the dog walkers and the horse riders. It's before Raptor, I believe. We call it the old path to go to the sand pit when we used to ride motorcycles back there. So having the town is already back there with the machine doing work. I don't see it necessary to continue and to put aggregate down or to do other things on the other side of from Round Cove coming in. We already have vehicles that can come through there and access. We have a specific fire truck in the town of Harwich to handle any fires, and any of the larger apparatuses can come through the large, wide open path that the UPS trucks, the cement trucks, the construction trucks, the 10-wheelers, the 18-wheelers, all come through behind the house. It's not necessary. And to be at the bottom of the ninth hour, the bottom of the ninth inning, with a decision that has to be made tomorrow, that, hey, we're gonna make a decision, we're gonna sell this piece of property to Harwich Conservation Trust. Only if you fix this road, and if you don't fix this road, then we're gonna send it to developers. How well do you love Harwich? How much do you love this community and our property? We're just going to want to give it up to other developers versus continuing the sale and not worrying about the section of road from Raptor Road, which was supposed to be taken care of by the developer, all the way down to the intersection, down to Round Cove Road where the new area is. That's all I have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I know you
Just
guys will make
ask you to-
decisions best for the town of Harwich and our people.
Thank you.
Here's this license agreement that everyone keeps saying I'm supposed to maintain
Can
the
you
road.
first identify yourself?
Oh, I am Robert Freitas, the evil human that wants the town to maintain town roads. This is a contract. The first line, the town of Harwich being the owner of this road, this board signed it. So if they don't own this road, then they lied to me and they're lying to you. Because here's a contract saying this is a town road, you own it. All I'm asking is to maintain a town road. Sisson Road is a county road. The road that this building on is a county road. All these roads, all the main roads in Harwich are county road. It's a county road. I have this contract, you all signed saying it was. It shouldn't be that hard to maintain it.
Planning board.
Everyone keeps saying, I said I was going to maintain the road. I never said it. Here's the contract. Anyone that wants to read it, and show me where it says I was going to maintain this town road. What happens when I die? Someone else going to, my heir's going to maintain it?
So we're here to talk about the current issue before the
Well,
board.
I'm just trying to point out all the people that keep saying that it's not a town road. It's a town road. I pointed out to this board 10, 12 years ago. I went down to the, not the assessor, the town clerk. I printed out all the county roads. Hawks Nest, County Road, that's according to the town. You just go ask the town clerk. Round Cove Road.
So I'm just going
town
to stop you
road.
there because this has been litigated, as you know, twice. And so
Well, no, it was once, and it was appealed.
it appealed.
And all that happened, you can read the lawsuit, all it
Hold
said
on.
is I didn't have standing.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just trying to get through.
I didn't lose, I just didn't
this-
have standing, because I didn't sue for an amount.
At the end of the day, the results are the results. We don't have to go back and talk about them. We're just trying to talk about what's going
I understand, but I keep hearing all these people get up and say, I said I'd maintain it forever. That never happened. This is the contract,
Understood.
it's right here.
You had a license agreement, that's why the town,
Yes.
the
And I put down ABC instead of T-base because a lot of people at the time were concerned more with the tar in the T-base. But the town has lots of T-base because every time they dig up a road, they have tar. Personally, I think T-base is fine. It's been on Bell's Neck and Hawk's Nest, but the newest section does have ABC instead, because at that time, that's what most of the people wanted, so.
Thank you.
So if anyone wants to read it.
So you need to just sit down with that because we're going to go to the next speaker.
Peggy Gabor, Long Pond Drive. Just clarification, the addendum about the road repairs and maintenance was made by the seller to the purchase and sale. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct. All right. So there was litigation. I attended the hearing for the suit. I sat behind Bob, actually, and his attorney was in front of him, and there was a conversation with his attorney about the town maintaining the town road called Hawk's Nest. And the judge stopped him and said, "Oh, you're saying it's a town road?" And the attorney said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Well, I'd like to see the evidence of that. Do you have it?" And he kind of held his hand out. And Bob's attorney answered, "I have no evidence." And the judge looked at him and said, "So it's a county road. And he said, you know, if you want to go talk about the county road, downstairs in the Supreme Court, the Superior Court building, is the Barnstable County Commission, who would oversee the road. And he said, you can go talk to them. So Hawks Nest Road is a county road. It is not owned, and there is no evidence of ownership of the town of Harwich. It is a 400-year-old road that is part of our heritage. And it used to be a beautiful dirt road. But the contract, well, we'll get into the contract, but I would like to read the summary judgment that was issued at that time.
This board has that information. I can't say that the public
Okay, well, I
has
can't
read
say
it,
that the
but
public did. That's why, all right, well,
at
okay.
this point, there's other.
So let me go to, they were told they could not ask to have a demand of the town that the road be repaired. They couldn't demand any of these things. I think the sale of this property to conservation is fabulous. I lived in Arizona. I worked with the Hopis, Native people, First People, very important to me. And I would love to meet them. I think that the best thing, because they've been told repeatedly legally they can't stand on the road issue here, that they should, which they're trying to backdoor on the deal. I think the right thing for both of them to do is to sell to the conservation group, plain and clear. That, to me, is the right thing to do for everybody. That is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dan Wolf. I live on 94 Nathan Walker Road, which is thankfully on the other side of the park and therefore not in contention tonight. And I think my goal, as I sat there listening to this, I think my goal tonight is to leave the room with everybody hating me. because I see people who I see in the park walking like every day. And I gotta say, I am on these roads almost every day, twice. Once with my two dogs, many of you have met, and once on my bicycle. Yes, I'm the guy who looks like sort of the Harwich guy who lives in the woods on my bike. But nobody, and I've been out in that area for the last 47 years. We recently moved to Nathan Walker, but I have enjoyed Hawks Nest and the surrounding area for decades and decades, as have my family. Raised my 3 girls swimming in Hawks Nest Park and everything else. So I love the place. When I served as your state senator, I was an absolute conservation environmental advocate, recognized by the Environmental League of Massachusetts, very supportive of Mike Locke and the amazing work he's done here in Harwich. So I'm not speaking here as a pro-developer. The Freitas will hate me because I don't like the type of development they do. I think we have identified for decades that smart growth, where infrastructure can be compressed, which saves money. I mean, a lot of people here are talking about the expense of the town fixing the roads. What do you think the expense of the town is supporting the infrastructure for suburban sprawl? Because that's what Cape Cod is all about. And as we look at sewering, we're trying to sewer neighborhoods that don't have the density to actually make it economically viable. So I don't, sorry, Liz and Bob, I don't particularly like some of the development that you've done because I don't think it's consistent with smart growth principles. So there, I've alienated everybody. But let me say this. The town of Harwich has the blessing of being the gateway to one of the most beautiful state parks in the Commonwealth. And as somebody who served on the Department of Conservation and Recreation Stewardship Council, we used to have our, appointed by Mitt Romney, of all people, we used to have our DCR meetings all around the Commonwealth at different parks. And I always loved coming back home to Harwich because I always felt like this is a sense of pride. This is the most beautiful place. But what I'm hearing so many people who I am simpatico with on most issues sort of defending is the way Hawks Nest Road looks now and the way Round Cove Road looks right now. And it's an embarrassment to the town of Harwich. If we have people visiting from other places to get to that state park and they drive up Hawks Nest Road, it's disgusting, guys. Yes, there is erosion. It's been widened. It hasn't been maintained. It's awful. And then if you come up Round Cove Road, it's like no one gives a shit. So I just have to say this to you guys. First of all, thank you for your service. But second of all, the middle ground here is to sit down with the people, the devil is in the details, is to sit down with the people who are actually going to be doing the work on that. And in my opinion, it needs to be done without regard to the Freitas land, okay? And actually make those gateways to that park something that the town of Harwich should be proud of. Now, there is a way to do what we want to do to Round Cove Road, and James, thank you for your comments on that, to make it both not attractive for people who are going to use it as a cut-through, almost impossible to speed on, and yet meet what the Freitases need to do in order to get this 17 acres where we need it to be. We do not want to see more development out there. So I guess I don't know what vote you take, because you guys have to maybe back off your 17 date so that people can sit down and have a reasonable discussion about what Round Cove Road will look like, so that Todd Borges and his family, who I've worked with, how many years have we worked together at Cape Air, Todd? Over 30 years. I really don't want to piss you off. So that the people who live on Round Cove Road can be proud of that road and yet not be worried about the negative impact of doing what the Freitases need to see happen to have that land set aside. There has to be a middle ground here. And for the people who don't want to see this happen because they want to preserve, meet me tomorrow morning at 6:30 or 7 when the sun comes up at the intersection of Round Cove Road and Hawks Nest Road and tell me something that's really what you want to preserve. So what I would say to the DPW is beautify it. Don't just sort of maintain it to some arbitrary standard. Come up with a plan, whether it is indigenous growth or, however. I don't like the surface you guys are talking about, but there's a surface that would not be offensive, and there's a way to maintain the road narrow enough so that we're not worried about through traffic. Speed bumps, signs, whatever you got to do. But let's not protect something that we ultimately don't like. We like the park, but those roads as they are, they're not, I get half the time I fall off my bike when I'm riding on it. So, that's all I have to say. This is a great opportunity. And Mike and his team at the Conservation Trust, I know behind the scenes have been really trying to get this to happen. And Bob and Liz, I ran into Liz there a few weeks ago. I don't necessarily love everything you do, but I actually think what you're putting on the table here makes sense. And I love the fact that you're willing to not see more development down there, because I don't think we need it down there. There are places in town where we should do affordable and better housing, and this isn't one of them. So, do y'all hate me now?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm the fool who will get up and speak after Dan Wolf. Margot Fenn, Queen Anne Rib. I'm pretty much on Dan's page, but I may be a little more conservative on what I think could be reasonably done to the road without changing the character of the neighborhood and also encouraging more traffic to go through there. I guess what I really want to say is, what is the rush on this? Why do you have a deadline of tomorrow to sign something? It makes no sense. I know that the developers or the property owners may have their own reasons for wanting to close a sale before the end of the year, but this is an important decision for the town of Harwich and for the future of the District of Critical Planning concern and the Six Ponds area. And it needs to be done properly. If there are some engineering plans, if there were some, interaction with the neighborhood about what could be done, and they could see what it might look like, you might have more support here than you've got tonight. And it just seems like I want to see this land protected. I think it's a very important piece of land. I sit on the Real Estate and Open Space Committee. And this is a piece of land that when we made a recommendation to you 3 years ago of what lands we thought should be protected. This was on the protected list, and we wanted to see it protected. So I'm delighted that they've been working with the Native Lands Conservancy to do this, and I want to see it happen. But I think I think Mr. Rosado's right that there needs to be some middle ground here, and we need to take the time that it takes to find that middle ground.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Richard Waystack. I couldn't agree more. It should be protected. Work diligently with our friends at Harwich Conservation Trust. But no one likes a gun to their head. No one likes a deadline saying, if you don't do this by tomorrow, we're not going to sell it to conservation. That's the wrong tact. You want to preserve it, you can sell to conservation by pulling that contingency. And I, to be very honest, resent the fact that a private purchase and sale agreement is coming before the board to make a decision, so you are the arbiters of whether this land is conserved or not. This is not the appropriate place to do that. And I think, to be honest with you, out of principle, I would say vote it down. If they want to pull the contingency and sell to preserve that people want, overwhelmingly, people want that preserved. But please don't hold a gun to our heads saying we need a decision tomorrow or we'll sell it to another developer. That's wrong.
Thank you. Anybody else? Let me just go to online to see if there's anybody. Matt, can you see if anyone wants to speak who's online?
Yeah, Randy Follett.
Randy Follett?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, Randy. Can you just state your name just for the audience?
All right, Randy Follett. I live at 32 Lakeway Lane, which is near Hawks Nest. I've walked there often. I've driven down that road. I've gone out in that area with my dogs, my kids. And one thing I like to say is it's a state, like a large chunk of that on that road on the side is state park. And in reading what the state wants to do with park is, and from what I read, is part of that Round Cove is owned by the state. And they actually, one of the recommendations is to put a gate at Round and Hawks Nest so nobody can drive through that area because of the erosion. And I agree with Dan, if we want to do something with the state park, we should work with our representatives to do the recommendations, fix up. They have recommendations for the erosion control and other things. And I just don't see the town, I disagree with the town paying to do that road. I like it the way it is, and I agree with the sentiment that it's kind of a last-minute thing, and this should be taking more time. And then also maybe the Community Preservation Fund could chip in some to buy the land. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else online, Matt?
Nobody's here yet.
Okay. Then Liz, if you wanted to come back up.
I know it seems like 11th hour, but just to be clear, we did bring this before the board in a letter in October, beginning of October. So we're not very last minute with this. My understanding is that this money may not be available much longer. So that's why we're really pushing this at the last minute. I don't know when the next meeting is.
It's next week.
There is a meeting?
Sorry, not the 23rd, the 30th.
The 30th, okay. So I don't know if you want to continue this, I don't know. You know, we did put the deadline in of tomorrow, that's going to be up to Bob. And just a couple things I hear constantly at me that are just incorrect. We didn't decide to widen Hawks Nest Road. We were told how wide to widen it. We did what we were told. To build our house, then to put in Raptor. And I disagree. The GPS is not going to steer you through there. It's a dirt road. I dare you. I've done it all the time. You do your GPS out on 137 to get to the same point on Queen Anne. It's going to send you down to the intersection, out to the little rotary, and to people don't cut through there. Yes, people on Round Cove are going to.
Okay, I'm just going to ask everybody to keep their comments to themselves so we can let the speaker speak, and then I would just ask you to not reiterate
All right,
everything
I'm not
that
going to
everybody's
reiterate,
already
but,
talked about.
yes, people who live on Round Cove may use Hawks Nest to get out. People who live on Hawks Nest may use Round Cove. That's just my opinion, my observation. I live there. As far as the lawsuit is concerned, and I'm not going into it, but I just want to say that the reason we lost the lawsuit is because we didn't have standing. That's a legal term. That means we were not injured. We did not get hurt. Our car did not get destroyed. They just said, sorry, you don't have standing on this. So that was the end of that. Anyway, we're willing to work with the highway department, as long as, I don't think Lincoln's not here, is he?
He is not.
He is not. If I can just envision it being like Round Cove Road is paved. It's irritating. The Round Cove Road is paved to the end, 12 feet wide. If it just kind of looked like that, a little bit off to the side and graveled down to Hawks Nest. Put in speed bumps if there's a problem of people speeding. And last thing I think I want to say is there was a comment that the town shouldn't pay money to fix someone else's road. It's not my road. If it was a private road, I could block it off completely. It is not. It's a county way. The county roads were taken in 1950. Bob already said this. That's a county road out there. Guess what? It's never been formally taken as a town road. I think you guys need to do something about that. There's 22 of them, I believe, county roads in Harwich that are town roads that are not formally taken. Fix that. But in any event, it's still a town road. The town should maintain it. A fire truck is not going to get through Round Cove. The brush breaker might, but a fire truck and an ambulance is not going to get through to Hawks Nest Pond. Someone's drowning down there. They will come in.
I'm going to go to the audience to ask you to please not speak while the speaker is speaking, and if you want to speak, you need to come up to the podium and identify yourself. And as a follow-up to that, fire department has assured us that they can get down there, so
No,
we're not
they
going to.
can- yes,
we're
they
not going
can.
to debate it.
All right, that's fine, but they will come at Hawks Nest. If there's an emergency at the pond, they will come up Hawks Nest. It's going to take a couple minutes longer, but they will do that. And I guess that's it. I just hope that we can work together and make this happen. This is a beautiful piece of land. I am out there all the time. It's precious. It needs to be preserved. This is a small ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to select board members. If you've already spoken, we're going to move on to the board now. There's nobody left online. Is that correct, Matt?
No.
Thank you. I'll go to board members. Is there any particular board member who wants to start or has a question? or-
Yeah, I'll start if you don't mind. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I have you come back up? Sorry. Or one of you, two of you, all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Obviously spirited and emotional topic here, and rightly so. Very important. I have a few questions, and then maybe a few comments. A lot of them, I believe, have been touched on, but I think I'm going to go a little deeper with them. In the beginning, you mentioned that you're working with Michael Locke and that you would like to see this property sold to him. Do I have that? Or to the Harwich Conservation Trust? Do I have that
Or
right?
to the trust that he's working with. I'm not
Okay, so he's working with a trust, and that trust
Yep.
is the Native Land
Native
Conservancy.
American Conservancy.
Okay, that clears that up for me.
That's the money, that's where the money's
Understood.
coming from.
Secondly, the reason for your deadline, if I heard you correctly, is that the money may not be available in a short period of time.
I'm going to have to defer to Michael Locke on that, but that is my understanding, is that there are other parcels that they're considering, and I think if they decide that there's something more timely or better, something else could come along. Somebody else could come up with 17 acres that looks just as nice as this, and they'll go with that. So I think I'm just afraid we're going to lose the buyer.
I personally didn't appreciate the December 17th deadline. I think that there's a lot of questions, as you hear from the audience here, that need to be answered, that aren't answered.
Well, it got it on the agenda.
Yeah, however, I feel that putting a gun, as it was said earlier,
right.
putting a gun to the head of the select board is probably not the strategy I would have employed.
Okay.
In my private business, I probably would have called your bluff and said, let's see who blinks first, right?
Okay.
That is not my intention here tonight, because I'm not dealing with my own private personal gain or loss. I'm dealing with all of these people's gains and losses.
Again,
Yours included. Yours included. So I'll overlook that, and if I may, Madam Chair, continue with a couple of questions. I will mention on the agenda, it speaks of Round Cove Road only. No Seth Whitefield Road, no Hawksnest Road. I'm not even sure we can be discussing the other road. That would be a question that I'd want answered before we even go any further.
Joe, do you have any feedback on that?
I have feedback. I'm not an attorney.
Okay.
I'm not your attorney. I think one could argue that this topic has been discussed before. The 3 different road names have been used before. So if the board were to take an action based on Round Cove Road as it related to Seth Whitefield or Hawksnest, and if somebody went to the Division of Open Government, if the Division of Open Government said you did it wrong, they would tell you to go back and do it again.
Okay.
I don't get the sense that anybody here has any malfeasant act to snooker anybody, for lack of a better word.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I'm not your attorney.
Understood. Next question. Candidly, why both roads?
well, because the land that we sold on Hawk's Nest, the people that bought those lots were under the impression that the town would maintain the land, maintain the road up to their lots, like they have done to our house when we built our house, to Raptor when the Geisheckers bought the lot there, and then to Round Cove. You know, that's just the way it's been. That was the understanding. I've got it in writing that was the understanding, that once the roads were improved, they would be maintained by the town. Now, because of the lawsuit that we didn't have standing for, the town has decided that they don't have to maintain that section of Hawk's Nest Road. So that these people who bought land from us, and I didn't know that until after the land had already been sold to them. Now they're being told that the town won't even plow it, a town road. They won't maintain it. That's just kind of unethical to change the way you've been doing something 2 other times to now, on a 3rd time, come back and say, oh, sorry, we're not going to maintain that.
Thank you. Next question I have is, precisely, are we talking about tree cutting on Round Cove Road? Are we talking about potential drainage mitigation for the town? Are we talking about any potential land taking from private homeowners on Round Cove Road?
No private taking of land. There would be probably some minimal tree cutting, just because if you go down there is literally a pine tree with all of its roots exposed, because here's the side of the road, the pine tree is right there. All of its roots are exposed in this cliff of an edge. So, I mean, that tree is not long for this world.
Sure.
Never mind pine borer. So, yeah, there's probably a couple of trees that will have to come down.
So for at least this board member, and this is why I brought up the deadline of tomorrow, and I think some of the other people here brought it up as well, is I don't have a vision of this. I don't know exactly what's being asked. And it appears that and you've said it's Bob's, I guess you would call it, his contingency.
Right.
It appears that you're not going to give any of us the opportunity to go out there and say, This is what we're actually asking for. So it becomes very difficult, I think, for me to like parse through this.
Can I just
Yeah,
comment
sure,
on
sure,
that?
please.
I mean, we're willing to have Link Hooper, the highway department, be the one to,
I'm asking you, and with all due respect, not to cut you off, I'm asking you if you're willing to move that December 17th date so that we can get more information. I think that's an important piece for this board, and I'll go...
to what? To
Well,
what?
I'll go back and say that there was never a PNS given to this board until Wednesday of last week. Okay, so you referenced October. You brought it to this board in October. It was never a PNS for us to take what I consider to be wildly erroneous, which is we're now involved in a private sale of a piece of property somewhere out in Harwich. I actually can appreciate the ask, right, from your position, but we have a lot of other people here who have other opinions. So to your point about when, I would probably defer to the board to get an idea of what they think. But given the time of year, given our schedule, given the amount of work it would put our staff, more importantly, our town staff, to give us less than 24 hours to make this decision, I think was a bad strategy. I've already said that already. I'd like to understand better what the cost to the town will be, what the ongoing cost to the town will be. You know, everybody looks at the cost of making a decision, but nobody looks at a cost, not many people look at a cost of not making a decision. And I hear what's happening here. I hear the back and the forth. If we don't do this, if you all don't approve this, there's going to be development out there. If I was a betting man, which I am, I love Foxwoods and Encore and Mohegan Sun, I would bet that you all would sell this to a developer. And then I would wonder where all the opposition and how they would feel when they're watching bigger trucks and more pumpers going down to what is your private property and you have the right to sell. So you know, I'm giving consideration and a lot of thought to the conservation side of things. I'm just asking whether or not maybe there's a way to take Round Cove Road off. Maybe there's a way to look at this in a different way. I think you've presented the town with what I would call a classic double bind. And option one is kind of not great. Option two is going to be really worse. So good luck. You know, I'm just looking through my notes here because I'm probably going to get one bite at the apple, and we've been doing this long enough, I think. I couldn't forgive myself if there were 5 to 7 homes built down there. I'm a conservation guy. I like conservation. I think what Mike Locke does is fantastic. I think the roads are going to be modified in either case. And my final words would be this. I would rather control and have some say over what happens versus not have any control whatsoever if, in fact, Mr. Freitas and Liz decide to sell these properties privately. Game's over. Reminds me of a 40B. Reminds me of a 40B, where it goes to the state, local has not a lot of influence. So that's where I stand, Madam Chair. I thank you for indulging me in that long-winded mess, I guess.
I just have one question.
Yeah,
'Cause
sure.
I think you meant to say, can you take Seth Whitefield Hawk's Nest off? Did you, or did you mean?
I meant to
you said
say,
Round
could
Cove?
we take Round Cove, or could we take 1 or 2 off? Does it have to be both, in your opinion?
It can't.
Let me
It
just
can't
say
be.
this. There's clearly door number 1, and there's clearly door number 2. Many people here have asked for door number 3. Door number 3 would be sell the land to conservation, ask nothing of the town. I'm going to ask you straight out. Is that an option? No. Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Thank you. Ron?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I tend to get a little passionate about this because I think there's 5 people left that were involved with the original Six Ponds DCPC. 2 of them are sitting in this room right now, it's Margot and I. I was the vice chair of the planning board. We had a vision of trying to preserve that, and it was Hawks Nest was already created as it's been called a park. It's really a forest preserve. It's not a park. It doesn't have picnic benches. It's not developed. It wasn't designed to be developed for that. It's a conservancy area, basically. So I'm really invested in this. Now, on the one hand, there's 2 different sides of this. On the one hand, I have the press release from the Healy-Driscoll administration that was released on December 5th. It would be highly unusual for them to withdraw the $500,000 for the Native Land Conservancy that will permanently protect 16 acres. I'm not sure we're at 16 here and 17 on a P&S, but and then just pull the money back next week. That was done on December 5th. So that just doesn't sound reasonable. Second of all, I spent a large portion of my earlier career as a contracting officer, and what we're seeing here is an attempt to do through a contract of the parties that which did not happen through the courts. The court system, you'll forgive me, but the standing had a lot to do with the fact that no citizen, not just you folks, but no citizen can compel a municipality to increase road maintenance or widen a road. Having said that, I personally would support making both roads passable. But passable is a different story here. This is a term of art that we have in front of us right now. I hope everybody actually understands what's going on here. And Jeff was actually onto something about the engineering in 2 different ways. The layouts, and one of these is a cart path. That's Round Cove. The other one is the county road, which is Hawks Nest, Seth Whitefield. They're different. And the reason I say that they're different is that the cart path, in the first section that was done, I believe I understand that the road layout kind of meanders. It isn't an actual standard road layout. So the language that's in here is an impossibility to perform if there's a minimum standard. And the folks that are putting this language forward understand that standard to be, say, the subdivision plans. Those are 40 feet roads with 20 feet paved. We can't achieve that here in any event without taking land of some sort. I would, again, I'd be all in on maintaining the road as passable. But T-base and widening, without any specifics in this in verbiage that we're supposed to be willingly signing, is going to only wind up in problems later on. We're going to wind up in litigation again. What is the minimum town standard? Exactly how much do you want to widen either of these roads in feet? And really, what is that going to cause in terms of runoff? Because I've heard Bell's Neck Road before, but we don't have the adjoining properties that have actual homeowners in them. If something that we do starts flooding people's basements, shame on us for not doing any kind of stormwater runoff calculations. That hasn't been done yet either, and I'm not too sure we can do that by tomorrow at 5 p.m. Generally, any land transaction, I'd like the legal counsel to be involved with, too. That's not happening. We're being asked right now on a self-created actual emergency to do something that I see no urgency to at all. The money's going to be there. The money was just allocated. If we could sit down and actually come up with an agreement that has specific feet or bounds or something like that, but this language here is going to make us actually be accountable for a road layout where I'm not even sure what that means in terms of this. And it definitely holds everyone hostage by ending by saying if the seller may terminate the P&S with the deposit refunded to the buyer. I don't know about any of you folks, but that's kind of like somebody asking you to sell your house by next Friday. It's not possible. And if the Freitas were willing to sit down with us so we could create some sort of actual plan that's just for these roads, that's one thing, but that's not what's going on here. We're being asked to create an agreement with some sort of layout that we're not even sure what it's going to look like. The road, as far as I understand it from highways, goes wider and narrower. That's Round Cove, at least. And without knowing specifically, by getting a surveyor out there, I'm not sure what's possible. But I am sure that we're willing to actually work to create a road that's passable.
I can tell you, Hawksnest has been,
Hold on. First of all,
Robert Freitas.
I understand that.
We've seen
I just want to say,
So, wait a minute. We are talking amongst the board now.
okay, well, I just
So-
wanted to answer one thing.
Go ahead. Just
It's laid out, and it's bounded. So the road's already laid out. It's 20 feet wide. The town minimum standard was 16 by 16. I read through the newest one. I think she has it. And now it's 18. I don't know what happened, but...
You keep saying it. There's two roads here. Which
well,
it?
Round Cove is laid out to 20 feet. They're all bounded. Hawksnest and Round Cove are all bounded. They're all laid out by the town years ago.
That's the part I don't believe. We don't have that in front of us, and that's the part that I'm disputing, that the whole length of that road is actually bounded out, and it is not constrained by private property, and it goes fully 20 feet.
I bounded Round Cove. I already added and checked some of the bounds on Round Cove. You could ask Todd Perry. He lives next to two of the bounds. He bounded a couple too. So, and the minimum is 18. That is in the zoning. I can give you a copy of that. And if you're worried about runoff, how come you're not worried about it now? The same amount of water is raining every day. And it's,
There's a difference between impervious pavement and just plain dirt.
It's going to be gravel or T-base, so that wouldn't change any. The same amount of rains.
I think we've
be
gone
the
back
same
and forth enough.
impervious.
We need to, Don, either, if you have more questions.
My point is that we'd be willing to engage in discussions with you that actually has a specific layout for the specific roads involved. This language right here, if replicated throughout this town, would put the town on the hook for all sorts of paving of cart paths, which it would be a frightening thought because we have a lot of them. This is not just a county road situation. This is a cart path situation.
I don't think there's too many. I can't think of any other cart paths that are town roads, county roads in town.
There are ancient ways, there are cart paths,
still
and
not
there are
the
actual
same.
easements that aren't even recorded necessarily in the town. It's hard, besides the disparity, by the way, of 16 to 17 acres. I have no idea if there's being an acre held back and for what purpose. But I'd be willing, as a matter of good faith, to have your lawyer and our lawyer hash out exactly what it is we're being asked to approve, specifically with numbers and with a layout that we can actually vote on. But right now, we're basically saying this is a hostage note. Right now, we're actually being told, accept this, or we're going to sell it to a big bad developer by tomorrow, and that's not right.
Well, I told you on October 14th this was happening.
The
That's a
P&S
long
was not
time
in our
ago.
hands until this past Wednesday.
Why would that have any effect?
Because these terms are in that P&S.
So before I was...
These are
blind to
legally
it.
enforceable terms. They actually would form a contract.
Like I said, I told you all this in October.
Just for the record,
Just-
we originally got an email the Tuesday before Thanksgiving with the board being copied in on an email chain, so there was nothing, and there was discussion on why I wouldn't put this on an agenda, and I specifically said, the reason being, it was not related to this board, because there was a private negotiation between two private bodies that did not involve the select board. And when Liz came to speak with us, that's when I said, if we had an executed P&S, it would be on this agenda, which it is on this agenda for this discussion. So this board has acted properly and appropriately, and I would argue very quickly to respond because you had a 17th deadline in that PNS. We're here tonight, it's the 16th, and we're talking about it. So we're doing everything as expeditiously as we can.
And I just want to end with the quote that was the extract from our lawyer that was derived from the PNS, because the folks need to actually hear what's being bandied about here. East end of the 17-acre lot premises to Hawksnest Road by widening the same and providing an aggregate T-base surface. There is no variation or negotiation going on there. By providing an aggregate T-base surface to not less than the minimum standard required for town roads in Harwich. It's not site-specific at all.
Well, that's...
It's general, and it could...
It is. In the planning...
This is not... We're not being asked to sign a plan. We're being asked to sign this verbiage.
Town plan, the town has a minimum standard. It's in the bylaws.
And again, that may or may not coincide with the actual physical layout of the roads as they exist today and these two specific roads.
It does.
It doesn't. There's absolutely nothing that we have that actually indicates that these roads can meet this standard. We can sit down, I'm telling you that we'd be willing to accept maintaining it to a passable standard, and at that point, you're along with other roads where they're going to plow in the snow, where nobody's telling you that we're just going to abandon you and you're done. But we will negotiate that. But this language is universal. It doesn't have anything to do with this specific road layout. If we can have time to sit and negotiate that, I'd be all for that. But if you're saying to me, vote for this tonight, or else we're going to take and revoke the offer to the Land Conservancy, and we're going to go home, and there's going to be 5 buildings there.
Next Monday.
We don't even have a meeting next Monday, the 23rd.
And we need to see from you what it is you're proposing, actually laid out on paper. This is text. And it's vague enough. My own experience in contracts are, if you have a dispute, it's the aggrieved party that's going to wind up winning that. So if your interpretation of this clause is wider than what we were thinking, it's going to be you that's going to wind up winning that. Right now, legally, you don't have that authority. But if we sign this document, you will.
Well, like I said, I'm not trying to make it a super highway, just the minimum. It is laid out in the town rules, but...
Well, if you're going to sell the property, I'm sure you've done meets and bounds to be able to accomplish that. How hard is it for you to create a document on paper that shows exactly what it is you're planning on us widening this to and maintaining it to?
My engineer's slower than death. He's like my lawyer.
Well, so are we. So perhaps we need to get more time than just Monday.
I'm sure you could put something down relatively quickly. It doesn't.
So just to be clear, we don't have a meeting on the 23rd. We don't have a full board on the 30th. So we're looking into the new year. So you could talk about maybe the 6th or the 13th, but I'm just throwing those dates out, not knowing how long it's going to take for you to get something that...
And we'd have to sit down and be able to look at it and
prior to a
then talk
meeting.
with each other.
Right.
May I say one thing, Madam Chair? I think we can be reasonable. I don't think we want to delay this. I think this is important to you. It's important to us. It's important to everybody here to finish this. We certainly, I don't think anybody in here wants you to run off and sell it to a developer. I don't mean to
Yeah, no,
interrupt.
please, go ahead.
I'm just saying that we're looking at a timetable, and Don, when you finish up your points, we'll go to Pete, have a discussion from Pete's point of view, and then wrap it up and figure out what the next step is.
I can't take it any longer because we're about 3 hours away from this thing expiring.
I just want to point out. I would like to point out that what Jeff said is correct. If those lots get developed, the road's going to be wide. You're going to have to put water and power down the road. So the road would be as wide as probably the full 20 feet that it's laid out to. I can tell you it's laid out to 20 feet.
Exactly how would we be extorted into doing that for somebody else if we're not willing to do it for you?
I'm not saying you would be. I'm just saying the road would be wide, because once you put power and water, and it's going to be the maximum is the layout. It's going to be the 20 feet.
Okay, So let's
So
go.
I just point out that Jeff is correct. The road would be probably wider than it would need to be because you'd have to put the power and the phone poles and all that in. Where if you don't put that in, you wouldn't have to do as much widening.
But we would be in the same circumstance with a developer asking us to widen our road, and we may not actually approve of that.
Okay, so, Pete?
What, Mr. Freitas, while you're there, if I could,
Yeah.
I wonder why the Native American Conservancy requested the language pertaining to road improvements.
I
part of
put
the
it in
agreement.
there.
You put it in?
Yes.
It was your stipulation?
Yes.
Okay, so because it's your stipulation, you could easily withdraw that stipulation?
I could, but
No, understood. I'm not saying you're going to, but
I'm
point
not
is
letting
you
the
could.
town beat me up anymore.
No, understood. I just wanted to clarify, it's your stipulation, not the Conservancy's.
Because I was told once Hawks Nest was done, that you would maintain it, and so far, you didn't keep your word on that, and many other things, so
Well,
that's why this is in there.
and the only thing I'll say to that agreement that you had with the town back in 2017, I know what the conversation was through the planning board minutes, but the agreement that you signed with the town on page 2, section 3, condition of the premises, the last line clearly states, "Nothing in this license shall be construed as requiring the town to maintain the roadway, including without limitation the license area and/or the improvements made thereto."
I
So-
know, but like I said, they maintain every other
Oh, no.
county road
Again, I'm
in
not
the
arguing, but
county.
my point is, the agreement states that
I
they're not
understand
obligated.
that, I know.
So we clearly have some inconsistencies on what we maintain.
Planning
and not.
board said they would.
Agreed, I understand. The agreement
Okay.
was with the Board of Selectmen, and that's what you signed along with that board at the time.
Yeah,
Just wanted to put that out there because
No,
I
I
know
read that.
it's been said.
but like I said, it doesn't say in there I'm going to maintain it for life either, like
no,
multiple
To your
people in here
point,
keep saying.
it doesn't say you're going to maintain it at
They
all.
keep saying that, though.
And that's fine. They have their
And now
opinions.
the people
I
that
don't see
bought
that
from me are like,
language in there.
wow, you're
Let
supposed to
the
maintain
select board
it.
members
Your-
speak.
That language, I don't see that in there either, but I also don't see that the town's going to maintain it. That was my point. So, and I won't beat this thing up. I'll start by saying, I don't support the use of T-base in any stretch of this property. I do not support blindly altering any of these roads. To the points made by some of my colleagues, we need to see some documentation of what you folks are looking for. And I do not support acquiescing our authority on any acceptable road improvements to any single primary property owner, rather. So in other words, we saw some emails come through that some of your neighbors are willing to work with you to satisfy what you want those roads to look like. I'll never acquiesce to that point. It's the town, and I'll go as far as saying, it may be a county road, but the town owns it, the town operates it. And the town will decide to what standard that road gets altered. And my last, well, I guess it won't be my last, but my second to last comment is, and I know it's been echoed previously, and I spent a few minutes trying to come up with a different term than a gun to the head in light of, the world that we live in. But that's where I was on my thought process. But essentially what it comes down to, I don't ever appreciate being backed into a corner with an ultimatum. All right, and I think Jeff kind of shared the same thought. I understand your frustration with the town. I didn't sit here back then. I'm not gonna pay the price for your frustration and be told that I need to make a decision tonight.
Like I said,
Again, I can appreciate your position.
It was here in October.
No, and again, my colleagues have already addressed that point. There's a process. And because you requested something in October, we didn't have any documentation back then. We didn't have any plans back then. It was a request to improve, and what I recall, the conversation was to improve Hawks Nest. And we were asked to plow it a couple months ago. And I was sitting here at that time and said, this board doesn't belong talking about plowing roads. We don't decide what the highway department does on roads that should be plowed or not. But again, I'm going off on the side tangent there. The approach could have been different, could have been handled better. I wish it had been. And I do have some concerns, and I'd like to see more information because I will not blindly support just giving a blanket approval to improving these roads. That's where I come at this.
Thank you, Pete. So I'm the only one left, and I'm not going to say anything more than my colleagues have already said, which is that...
Still left.
Oh, Michael. I thought...
Wait till you were done.
Okay, no, you go ahead.
Have your back.
Sorry.
I don't even know where to begin, except for I agree with Dan Wolf, and Patrick tonight. Right, Patrick, write that down.
Wait, we're getting this down?
Make sure that's reflected in the minutes.
But Dan Wolf said it best, and I've made this argument for the years that we've talked about this road. I've made the argument that it is an absolute embarrassment to have Hawks Nest State Park there and the approach be what it is. Listening to the neighbors tonight, all of the speed things are solvable, very solvable, and something that we can put in speed bumps. Cost to the town is important. But however we got here, we're here on a single agenda topic. Let the conservation buy the land, we're going to sell the land. Doesn't matter how they got there, they're there. And no matter what, if they sell it to a development, Don's right, they're going to have to prove it and they're going to have to show a plan. But there's going to be a 20-foot road down Round Cove Road because that's the minimum standard. They're standing before us tonight saying that they'd be happy with 12 feet. So to them and their date, I think we need a further on date so that we can put something in place. And if we come to that minimum standard, and I'm not going to say the town's minimum standard, then we can go from there and make that park entrance something, to Dan Wolf's point, that actually looks something and shows pride in this town to that park. And it is not everybody's, it is everybody in town's park. It's not every abutter's park. One of the speakers tonight, Todd Perry, he owns land past the pavement, far past the pavement. And I believe the Freitas pick up a bunch of the land after that. So there's very little there at all that we could trim out of there to make it 12 feet or 14 feet, whatever it is, that isn't already owned by them. So what are we going to do? Do what the Board of Selectmen does every week? We'll bring it back. How long are we going to bring it back? 6 months until that money is gone? And I don't want to bet on whether or not the conservation group will pull the money for a better piece of property. I don't want to bet on that, for that piece of land, to Patrick's point, and why it should be preserved. And I would bet you, Don, that I could sell or Jeff, that I could sell my house by next Friday if I put it on the market in today's market. We can't just say we're going to bring this back, because that's all we do. To Don, Pete, and Jeff's points, we do need a plan. And the plan isn't going to happen tonight. And I understand your frustration. And despite people saying that's because I play cards with you, which I haven't in 3 years, it's about saving the land. And that's what it's about. And everybody, even if you're against it, you're going to end up with a road. You're going to end up with a development. You're going to end up with cars speeding through there, no matter what. So the gun to the head thing, I agree with the other fellow board members. I don't think that we should be put in a spot where we have to make a decision tonight. But I understand how you got there, and I understand what your options are. I hate to say it, I probably would have put it on the market, take more money and stop dealing with this a long time ago. I don't believe you're asking for much, and I believe it benefits the entire town from the aesthetics of that road. I would ask you for some more time. To my colleagues, we have emergency meetings all the time. There's absolutely no reason why we have to wait into January for this. Whether a board member is going to be away or not, there is 5 of us for a reason. And not everybody is at every meeting for every decision. So I think it should come back. And the board did have a little bit more notification on this. And I disagree with the chair because it was private conversations that led us to get to this point. Because the ask in the email was exactly what you're all seeing tonight, with the exception of the purchase and sales. So we were warned that this was coming forward, and I tried to get it on the agenda ahead of tonight that might have made deadlines, but I was denied that request because of side conversations and not putting something on the agenda. We owe it to the town to take this 17 acres. Absolutely owe it to the town to take this 17 acres. We also owe it to the town to make the residents feel safe and to make it so people aren't cutting through there. And I would agree, the GPS has taken me through there. But we don't need to widen the road much based on what they've said. And that little bit of room to get there. And then everybody in this town can enjoy that park, and they should be able to. So I would ask that we put this back on the agenda sooner rather than later, and that we ask Elizabeth and Bob for more time and a road layout and time for the board to go out there and look at it, but that we don't drag our feet like we do many other things. Let's get it done.
Could Link Cooper, draw up some plan? I mean, you don't have a town engineer anymore, right?
All right, so we're done talking for the public. I'm going to speak, and we're going to end the conversation at this point. And I will speak to the, my colleague who indicates that something was denied to be put on an agenda. That is absolutely not accurate, and actually, an email sent out was not accurate. And this did not go on our agenda for the reasons I stated previously. We did not have any executed P&S until we got it Wednesday. It did not belong on this board's agenda until we got an executed P&S with the language contingencies. Furthermore, I would say that there's many times we have had emergency meetings. I would also say that normally it's not over Christmas. So having said that, we don't meet next week, and I believe that it's very important to conserve land. I'm a big proponent of it. But I, too, don't appreciate, and I can't come up with a better phrase, so the gun to the head is what I'll use. And ultimately, I don't believe that we're at a situation where this, none of this is possible, but discussions, and we're hearing from the public tonight, which is our job, to hear from the public, both sides, and to understand what you're looking to do. All of that is something I can appreciate, but I would look to this board to represent the entire neighborhood, as well as my colleagues' points on what this town has to do on roads, what has been litigated that has to be done, and all of those things can be taken and hopefully get the feedback, get a plan, get a discussion on what can be done, what makes sense, what's the most least intrusive thing, because at the end of the day, conservation land is to be left in its state and appreciated. And you're going to get a benefit from that as well. Not just monetary, as Liz said, you're going to get a benefit for having conservation land abut your property, which is wonderful. But at the end of the day, it has to be done right through a process, the same way it ended up on this agenda, and it will be discussed by this board, discussed and taken the feedback from the neighborhood, which I think is also important. Don?
Thank you. This is going back to my contracting experience, because I don't want to get in a position where I'm making an offer and you're making the acceptance. You're the one who's asking for this, and I would suggest, as a practical matter, that we leave this room tonight with you telling us on paper what you see that layout looking like. Then our people will review that and either accept it or not, because it's not up to us to determine what you want. We're not going to be in a position to sit in the highway department or the DPW and create a road layout not knowing whether you'd even accept it, because this is your language right in front of us, and it's vague. It has to do with town road layouts. If you could come up with two sets of plans, one for Hawks Nest, Whitefield, and one for Round Cove Road, that you show where you think the widening needs to go to, and submit that to us, then we have something to go on that's specific to this and not just a general statement that it has to conform to any and all roads in Harwich. I would suggest that that's the route we need to take.
That is the route. At this point, we're looking for a plan that we can review, get feedback on, and go from there.
Can't the town just make the plan? It's a town road.
To Don's
You're
point,
making the request.
It's your language. And again, to Richard Waystack's point earlier, why the town has been pulled in to a private party's P&S is really the question here. And then you're coming to us with a date saying that we must react. Then I have a colleague saying that we must react even quicker and have a special meeting. So at this point, we have been dragged into this. We are putting it on an agenda, having an open discussion. We're asking for a plan. It's your P&S, it's your language.
Can't the town make the plan?
I think you just heard me say no.
No.
You make a plan, you give it to us. We don't have to make the plan. This is yours.
It's his request.
Right, it's your request. It's your language in that P&S. That's been confirmed. We didn't put anything in anything.
And I don't, just to go past the gun in the head analogy here, The grant that was issued by the state is site-specific and entity-specific. They're giving because there was a number of grants that were announced. They aggregated to $5 million. The recipient is specified, and what the purpose of the money is specified. It is Hawks Nest. They can't just uproot and say tomorrow, we'd rather do something in Falmouth. That's not how the money was granted. The appropriate mechanism here, and I'm trying to be reasonable myself, because I know you feel like you've been backed into a corner. Let's assume that they have more than a week of holding the money. Come up with a plan that you're offering us that would be appropriate for what you would want to be able to accept. Then we can actually accept it or not. But we're not going to be the ones who are designing it, because we're not the ones who are asking for the road to be done, and neither is the Conservancy, by the way. This is an insistence on the part of the seller, which is you, that certain things have to happen, and it's hard for us to figure out what those things are without you putting it in writing. This text right here is big enough to drive a bus through.
I think it basically says exactly what that license agreement says.
Can I just ask one question? Would we be able to work with Link to come up with a plan?
We'd get the plan, and then we'd work with Link to see.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to understand.
You'll be involved.
We'll take that plan, we'll review, we'll discuss, we'll have enough. Okay.
That's about as reasonable as I can get.
Go on to the next item. Now we're on, if any discussion's going to be had, please take it outside so that we can carry on to the next agenda items.
Let me be really clear. I look
Excuse
forward
me.
to them actually giving us that kind of plan. I'm not trying to push them into a corner.
I understand. Get the plan.
That's my time.
If you can take the conversation outside so we can continue and finish our meeting, thank you. Okay. Contracts? Oh, sorry, second reading. Policy on public comment. Discussion and vote to adopt.
I don't see that on the agenda.
Madam Chair,
A
Oh
silent.
my God, I pulled my old agenda out. I'm sorry.
It's a silent reading.
Even I was like, I didn't realize that. It's been a long night. It's 9:35, so.
We only have 2.5 hours left.
So I was right on contracts. Item A, oh my God.
We forgive you. It's okay.
Oh,
Madam Chair, members of the board, what you have in front of you is an agreement. It's an extension of a agreement that you've had with Eric A. Kinshirf, CPA LLC. As you know, Mr. Kinshirf, his firm, he was here this evening as your financial consultant. However, his firm has also provided our interim finance director. That's the purpose of this contract. I'll be able to speak later on under TA's report about the search process on the finance director, but this continues the town's relationship with Kinshirf Associates, Kinshirf et al., as we move forward towards getting a finance director.
thank you. You got a motion?
Motion to approve the contract with Kinshirf CPA LLC
As written.
as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Pete?
Yeah, so, and I probably should have asked this 6 months ago, but. Why Eric? No.
Okay.
The reason I say that is because 6 months ago is when we went through the other agreement. But anyway, this doesn't need to go through procurement for the dollar amount?
So the town has the right to extend the contract. It's an extension, basically. So it was procured.
Initially?
Correct, and the
Okay.
extension is allowed.
Okay.
Correct. And thank you for the question.
So, any other questions?
That's it for me.
Don, you have anything?
No, I have seconded it.
No, but you have no. Forget it.
I'm good to go.
All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
I had a lot of things I wanted to say, but I'll just roll
Oh,
with
did
it.
you?
Mike, leave notes for you?
Madam Chair, if I could, under item B, as you alluded to before, so the town, through the Select Board, has executed a purchase and sale agreement with the estate of Lois A. Jones to purchase property at 5 C Street Extension. The requirement now is to announce that the dollar amount for that purchase and sale is $1,410,000. The proceeds of which are coming from funds that were received under the 2024 annual town meeting, Article 22, from the sale of land.
We need to make a motion to execute the purchase.
You can confirm all that by a motion, correct?
I move that we confirm the purchase for the amount specified to the party specified.
And the funding.
And the funding source.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Pete?
Was it Article 22?
That was confirmed before we came back up.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other discussion? Jeff?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I should have explained also that the balance of that article was $1,515,000, I believe. So the
More than enough.
article has not been depleted, sufficient funds.
Thank you.
Having said that, the long-awaited town administrator's report. I can hope, Tim.
It better be done by the 17th.
Some updates, first of all, and I apologize, I failed to recognize when the Finance Committee was here. The Finance Committee did approve a request from administration on behalf of the Select Board and the local planning committee. So we have additional funds of $40,000 so that the local comprehensive plan can be completed by the local planning committee. So I thank them for their support and appreciate their help last week. So that transfer was approved by the Finance Committee. Secondly, I will be updating the board. There are several updates from several different matters that have been pending, different attorneys and different matters that I've been working on through directions of the board. So I'll be updating you. Some instances, it's still protected and privileged information. Others are just standard updates. So I'll be sending that out to the board later this week. And as I mentioned before, the search update for the finance director, town accountant. As you recall, we were looking to employ the services of Collins Center. However, it's been discovered that there may be a potential conflict with regard to available candidates. That's as far as I'll go with that. However, we have begun discussions and expect to execute a standard agreement, a Chapter 30B agreement for less than $10,000 with Karen McCarthy Shanley. She is a retired personnel HR director who is skilled in these searches. She'll be working with Angelique McGibbon, our human resources generalist. Angelique and I are working on re-energizing the posting, getting a position statement out there. That's what Collins Center was going to work on. And Ms. Shanley's guidance is to analyze the resumes, work with appropriate staff on questions, be your primary person to review all that. And at present, she has a goal of presenting to you 3 to 5 individuals that would be finalists for the position, unless the board is looking for a different number. But that's where we're at on the search.
Thank you.
I have more, but I can pause for that.
Yeah, if I can just jump on that, are we able to see the agreement prior to you signing it?
Certainly, and what we're doing right now, she gave a engagement letter. We're going to compile that with our Chapter 30B agreement.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd just like to see the scope and all
Sure,
that, so that'd be great. Thank you.
Again, if there's any desire for the board for a different number of finalists, anything like that, please let us know. And then last but not least for me, just an announcement of a contract. So this is a contract with JPA Contracting LLC, and this is for replacing the epoxy flooring in the kitchen, cafeteria, and lobby of the 204 Sisson Road building. That contract comes to $43,750. This actually is funding that goes back to 2023 annual town meeting. As you may recall, under Article 16, we had capital items, and so that's where the funds are coming from. Given that the work is being done on a building, it is considered a construction project. a non-building construction project, so we relied upon Mass General Laws, Chapter 3039M. We did a bid process, and pleased to announce that JPA Consulting came in as the low bidder. That concludes my report, other than to wish everybody who celebrates a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a Happy New Year. And I have the second best Christmas tie tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
No, yeah, so Madam Chair, if we could just, and I don't want anything tonight, seeing the hour. So either the next meeting, or if we want to put on the agenda, just an update on the insurance discussion related to community center fields that were damaged over the spring or summer. Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it for me, thank you.
John?
Nothing other than to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and also to remind you that I do want to have that 5-year take from somebody. It could be Eric, could be anybody. But thank you.
Happy holidays to everyone. Thanks for being here.
Happy holidays as well, and everybody enjoys the relax.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.